It is 6:20 on the 16th of March. I'm going to call the Finance Committee meeting to order.
And I am going to call the Board of Selectmen's meeting to order.
Okay, the first part of our agenda is the meeting minutes from March 9th.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes of March 9th.
Second.
I have a couple of corrections. Tamika, under Treasurer Collector, when Becky first started talking about the position, she said that it had been eliminated that morning. But she still went on to discuss it, but it had been eliminated in the TA's budget that morning.
Karen, can you just refresh me on what I said? Am I adding that it was eliminated?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So just add that it says that the position was eliminated in the TA budget as of that morning.
So not from Becky.
And then under the 2.5 override, the Finance Committee was asked to come to the next meeting with thoughts for their final number for the override. And the town and the Board of Selectmen was going to get back to me on a potential adjustment to the town administrator's salary. You gotta make your motion again with the correct.
You have to put in your password
I'll make
because
a
they
motion
say so.
that we accept the minutes of March 9th as amended.
Second.
Any other corrections, issues? All in favor?
Aye.
No, you have to abstain, you weren't here.
Quit and reopen. You're going to have to.
All right, I abstain.
So we're going to have to rejoin. That'll be easy.
Call Tommy.
Yeah. Okay, now we've got Wachusett. Go, you're holding this up.
No pressure.
Karen, can we do a round table so everybody knows who everybody is?
That's the one.
Introduction?
No.
Well, I know everybody knows who you are.
Yes, we can do that. So go ahead, could you start, please?
I'm Michelle Grisay. I'm the Director of Business and Finance for Wachusett Regional School District.
Jim Riley, the Superintendent of Schools for Wachusett District.
Karen Narwhal, Finance Committee.
Lynn Winnicka, Finance Committee.
Peter Miller, Finance Committee.
Linda Nichols, Board of Selectmen.
Tamika Murphy, Executive Assistant.
Gary Kelleher, Town Administrator.
Skip Clark, Selectman.
Becky Tuttle, Treasurer Collector.
Aaron Ross, Finance Committee.
Sherry Haber, School Committee Chair.
Brett Beardmore, School Committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there another school committee member that's not here?
There are two more. Kumara Govardhan is online. I see
Okay,
him.
that's good.
And Matt Lavoy.
Oh, hi guys.
And Matt Lavoy, who is not with us tonight.
Matt's not here? Oh, that's too bad.
I don't
Oh,
see him.
Sherry.
Yes.
There was an email that I saw. Matt, I guess, is running about 15, 20 minutes behind this meeting,
Oh, okay.
but he's gonna. I don't know in what way he's gonna try to make it. So I just saw that fly by.
Cool.
Great.
Yep, you're all set.
First of all, I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to come and speak with you. I personally am thrilled to be in the Wachusett Regional School District. I mean that. I think that what we're hoping to do is talk to you a little bit about the budget development process we went through. Talk to you a little bit about this year. It's been a challenging year for us in the school district. But share some of the things we're hoping to accomplish and some of the positions we're seeking to add to the district and why. And also to answer any questions that you might have for us. But we really do appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you. One thing I would share this year, and I'm not sure how much people have heard what's going on in the school district, but we've had a lot of issues in terms of our finances. And I guess to start out, I wanted to share what our financial goals have been once we came into the system. I joined in July. Michelle joined really at the end of November. And we've inherited a lot of issues, honestly, that have probably been going on for the last year plus. But our goals, since we've come in, are a couple. We want to make sure we're budgeting and advocating for what kids need. And that's really my job as superintendent, to try to make sure that our students get what they need to be successful. And I think it's also important when I make recommendations, or the school district makes recommendations, that we base it on data, okay, or best practice. We're not just throwing things out there like this would be nice to have. And I hope when we look at some of the positions we're putting forth this year, I can share the data that we're relying on. The other thing we're really trying to do this year is be accountable and transparent. Own our mistakes. Like, we've made a lot of mistakes in the district where we haven't been as clean with our finances as we need to be. And I think we can't deny that. I think we have to be honest about it and put it out there, because it's one of the things that have led to our issues. The other thing, we got to fix it, and we're trying to fix it as quick as we can, but as I'll share a little bit later, there's a lot of steps that we continue to need to take. And then the last thing I'd say is that we've become aware that we have a lot of systemic changes that we need to make, and so a lot of the things in the district are very antiquated. We still have some processes where we're using carbon paper, and so things are going from one desk to another, and you can't do that. Obviously, right? You're going to be making mistakes when you do it things that way. You're introducing human error, and it's really time for us to update how we do things with electronic workflows, and we're in the process of trying to implement all of those things, and it will make a difference for us in the long term. But it's, honestly, it's where we are. And then the big thing, especially in terms of Rutland and our other towns, is we are looking to form healthy town partnerships. I will share with you, and I understand, when we start talking, it may be like, you said you understood that you were just part of the town, and you may say, like, you don't get it. We really do try to get it, and we know we're just a piece of every town, and we are trying to be good partners. We are. We're a huge piece. But I think it's really important that you do know that. We don't want to not be responsible to our town partners. And that there's a couple things I'll talk to you tonight. One thing I'm frustrated about, I wish we had done more this year, is look for untapped efficiencies. Like, there's a lot of things. I think as Michelle and I, especially as we move towards next year, we're hoping to look at some things, discover some things in the budget where we can do that better. All right, some of the things, and these are just minor things, we've looked at some of our lease agreements, we've extended them to get better rates, better deals, additional machines, but we can definitely do more, and I think that's one thing that we need to look at. The other thing we are constantly need to start to develop more is to seek alternative funding streams. If we have improvements to make, can we use some advertising? Can we fundraise at all and try to look at things? And then the big thing for us is looking for grant opportunities where they exist. And we've done that a little bit this year. I would say curriculum department in particular, the last couple of years, they've gotten some pretty healthy grants to support some of the work we're doing. And then this year, I'll get to it, one of the capital improvements we're requesting from the towns is for security measures. And for the town of Rutland, we put in for a $50,000 grant. And we're really hopeful. And Gary knows this, he was a partner in this whole process, but we're hopeful that we're going to get that, and that can make a difference. And we did that for Central Tree, and Rutland was one of 3 towns that we put in for that, so we're hoping that happens. And then the last thing is we're hoping to allow time to plan. And so I'll talk a little bit about one of the things we need to do is right now we don't have an active strategic plan, and I think it's really important that we find out from our communities, right, from our students even, and families, what's important for people. What are they hoping for when they send their child to Wachusett Regional Schools? And our hope is when we finish that work, and we're going to start to go underway with it in the spring, that we'll be able to bring forth a plan and have it be incremental. So if we're looking to add a program or something like that, number one, we can hopefully identify efficiencies so it doesn't have a great big price tag with it. But if it does have a price tag, that towns know we are hoping in the next 2 years, say, to add this program or that program and to work with them. I'd say the other piece about this, and I'll share, our facilities concern me. And so one of the things we've done a lot of work with this year is identifying what our facility needs are, and then try to set ourselves up so we can use MSBA funds if they open up their programs again for refurbishment, and look to replace things like windows, boilers, and roofs at a really good rate. And so it's not just coming down to capital improvements that have almost a total price tag for the towns. Instead, have a good reimbursement rate where, you know, the town knows it's coming. Hey, we'd like to apply in a year or two, you know, for this grant, for this program. Would you be on board? Here's the reimbursement rate, and try to work on some of our facilities this way. I think in particular, when I think of Rutland, I think of Naquag. You know, that's a building that it's going to need some TLC in particular as we move forward. And so, you know, I said I was going to be transparent. I will tell you that we are and continue to dig out of, quite frankly, a fiscal mess in the school district. We had a bunch of things when we came in that hadn't been completed that went over a year. We didn't have an FY21 audit completed. Michelle actually just really sent that in the other day, and that's a good news. That can really be checked off this list, and so that's a nice one that has come to fruition at this point. But we also, you know, at our first school committee meeting in July, we had to make several transfers, and the district had, you know, overexpended by approximately $1.65 million. And that necessitated that we make transfers from a lot of our revolving accounts. And that's not something that's going to be sustainable for the district. We have to keep a closer eye on our bottom line. One thing I'd share with you is that this year, to make sure we didn't get into a similar situation, Michelle was here for 1 week when she called me in and just said, look, we need to do a spending freeze. And so we have put that in place. And that wasn't done in much of that we thought we were over again. It was more about we need to be real careful about where we are and to make sure we don't go into those dark waters again and get ourselves into a situation where we can't pull out of. And we also did it.
1 second. Okay, point of order. Are we asking questions at the end of this? Or are we going to ask questions as we go? What would you prefer?
I think if we can do it at the end, it might be easiest, just because hopefully some of the questions may be answered as we move along.
Okay.
So.
You don't have plans, right?
No, I don't. No, we're.
Just want to make sure.
You've got me for as long as you want. You know, we've also had to do things like look at an assessment of our HR and business practices. When I share with you how antiquated we are with paper-based products, that's one of the findings of that assessment that they did for us. I worried about how we previously developed our budget, to be honest with you, and that a lot of times we were taking numbers and just, an example would be our salary line, as far as I can tell, we just multiplied by 3%. We didn't base it on actual forecasted expenditures. And one of the great things that Michelle has been able to do this year in her very limited time with us is our budget this year is based on our actual FY22 and FY23 expenditures. So we looked at what we actually spent, and that's what we tried to budget for, which was a step in the right direction for us. I think both Michelle and I would tell you, we're nowhere near where we want to be. We know there's still tons of work to do, but we feel decent, I would say, about some of the steps we have taken to make it better. One byproduct of the fact of you know, all of these things happening right now, we haven't closed out our FY22 fiscal year, and because of that, we meet on a weekly basis with DESE, the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, the Department of Revenue, and our auditors, which are Markham. And we do that every Friday morning, just to let them know where we are, what our status is in terms of how we are in terms of completing things. And they've been supportive of us. I'll be honest with you, we're lucky we're new, because I feel like they understand that a lot of what we're trying to dig out of right now was inherited. And that's good for us. And I don't feel like the school district's funding is going to be impacted. Where it has impacted us, and I'll share this later on, is we don't have our E&D certified for this year yet. And that's something that traditionally has been, with school committee approval, been put towards the budget. We're still hopeful that we're going to be able to get that done. But want to be honest with you, that's not included in this budget. Okay. So the budget development process that we did go through this year, we tried to work with people, be collaborative, be honest, be pragmatic, and also transparent. That's a big thing for us. We had a school committee budget retreat for the first time in I think a while, I think at least 5 years, where, you know, we talked about what are the goals of the district, where are we headed. It's hard, I would say to you all, without having a strategic plan right now. But I think we talked in general about our approach and how we are hoping to look at this budget. We also shared for the first time, and I'll have a slide about this, what our school principals are asking for. All right, that was information that traditionally wasn't made available to school committee, and we've made sure that that happens, and you'll see some of the positions people are looking for now. And we weren't able to fund a lot of them, because again, we're trying to be responsible with what we're requesting. I had shared before, Michelle was able to forecast based on actual expenditures. We've tried to get close to what town officials expressed to us they were able to live within was around 4%. We're not there yet. In Rutland, it's much higher, and I'll cover some of the reasons for that. A lot of the reasons I hope to show you today aren't in our control. They're not things that we're putting out there. It has to do with increased number of students who are attending the district, and the other thing is the state's determination of what your minimal local share can be. And so sometimes they'll make a calculation, and that calculation can fluctuate. I will be honest with you, I don't know the factors that they look at, but that was increased for Rutland again this year. And that is partly why your assessment had gone higher than the other towns. And so when we looked at it, what do we really need? What do I hope for the district? Some things that I felt like we needed to advocate for. One was class sizes. We had some class sizes, and I'll share this page with you, that were going to be quite high. Some of the schools where we're looking to add classes are Naquag and Glenwood. We really focused on the elementary schools because it's important, especially for the young learners. I can tell you philosophically, I feel like that's one of the most important areas that we concentrate on. And then we also tried to adjust if there was real inequities between schools. So schools didn't have a particular position and they needed it, but other schools had it. We tried to address that. The other thing we'll talk to you about a little bit is we're going to make a recommendation, and we're hoping to replace our elementary ELA program. And so we use Fontes and Pinnell, and that's a program that has come very much under fire in the last about year and a half.
Could you please, what's ELA? For those
So-
people who haven't been immersed in this for years, what's ELA?
Absolutely, and I apologize. English Language Arts.
Thank
And
you.
so it's really our literacy program, teaching kids to read and write, specifically to read. And one of the things about the program the district has been using is it's really kind of been debunked. A lot of places are saying this is not a program that's helpful to kids. And so we've accelerated. Typically, we would replace the program probably 2 or 3 years from now or start to look at it. And I think based on what we've seen for data, we're trying to accelerate that. And what we're hoping to do is pick a program next year, buy it, give it to teachers at the end of the year, and then implement it the next year for K-2. If we have an opportunity, I talked about grants a little bit before, we'd love to try to find a grant and support at least purchasing it for 3 to 5, and then we're hoping as well to be able to implement it at a greater range. But you know, that's where this next position comes in. We really are low on our curriculum support. We really only have 2 people in district. I can tell you most districts our size would have between 5 and 10 people. And so one of the things we need to be able to implement this program is more people to help support us. And right now we don't have a director of curriculum, somebody who is consistently just focused on that. That falls under our deputy superintendent, and we honestly need help. We're not staffed the way we need to be in that area. The last area we really tried to be concentrate on this year is our facilities. I think when we walked through, and we were actually, one of the really nice things when I joined the district is we had a lot of motivated subcommittees from our school committee, and our safety and security, our facilities and security subcommittee made sure that we toured every single building in the district before the start of the school year and look at what our needs were. And we were fortunate, Gary and other people joined us on those tours. All our town managers took a look, and we had conversations about, you know, what we're hoping for these buildings long term. In part, that's what's going to help us with the improvement project going long term, and with the Mass Building Authority, hopefully, is that now we know, okay, this is when the roof was made, this is what its condition is, this is when it would be eligible for one of these programs. So that was part of it. We also developed some immediate needs. Like I'll tell you, we worked, it was like a really nice partnership we did with your DPW here. They supplied the hard top, and we were able to redo an emergency exit at Naquag that had been shut down for the better part of last year. And so we were able to get some projects done, which was really nice. And it just also set the stage of where do we need to go as we're moving forward with our buildings. Because again, we don't want to be to the point where we're coming to you because something's broken down. And that's the last piece I'd say to you, is that the district needs to do better about our preventive maintenance. We haven't done it a lot. And I think sometimes in school systems, you'll wait until something fails, and we shouldn't be doing that. We should be putting the time, the money, the effort into it so the systems stay for whatever their life expectancy is. All right. One eye-opener that did come out of us walking around seeing all their buildings, and this was true in every town we went, it wasn't just a Rutland thing, is our security in our school buildings isn't what it should really be. And I can tell you that we've made an emphasis this year. We're going to probably be coming into the season real soon, when we're going to start holding Alice drills, which is, having an armored intruder and what do you do in a situation like that. And so we've tried to invest in our staff ability to make good decisions and keep kids safe, but we also have a need for some of our security infrastructure. A lot of our buildings don't have sufficient cameras. We've had key systems in place that have been in place for decades. And we don't have control over who has keys and who doesn't. And so we're really looking to make that electronic, where we have a fob system, and say if you have a disgruntled employee, you can remove their access that day. And so we're really trying to, you'll see when I'll share what those quotes are, and it's what we put in for Central Tree here in Rutland, trying to get a basic infrastructure, basic level of equipment in all of our schools across the district, and that's been the focus of our capital improvement requests. Beyond that, I would share, and this comes with the piece of communicating what we're hoping for moving forward, there are things that I really feel like the Wachusett district could really need to help their kids. We don't have, I think, the level of guidance staff that I would hope us to have, especially in our younger grades. Glenwood, Naquag, they have 0.5 guidance counselors, and really they need to have, hopefully we can move them towards 1.0 someday. Middle school, Central Tree doesn't have a health teacher. Those are positions that typically have a good value for kids, and can be appropriate. Academic interventionists. Right now, if you have trouble in school, in our schools, you really have the classroom teacher and you have special education. And there really should be an intermediate point where kids just get some support. Now, some of our schools, and Glenwood does and Naquag does, get some support from Title I, but you have to be eligible for that. And what we're able to provide with that, and both schools we're able to provide a tutor. But I would say that it's limited how many kids those tutors can service. And I would also say to you that these last 3 years have been tough on our kids. And we have a lot of kids who their first couple years in school have been remote, and they haven't been in person with people learning hands-on. And so I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't concerned about how we're going to support, especially at the younger grades, our learners, if they start to have difficulty. And ideally what we're doing is we're working to support kids so they don't have to be eligible for special education. If they are, that's fine. But I think that ideally we're catching them at a young enough age, and that's what the research would tell us, that that's the right time to intervene and give kids support. I think we have to have a complete special education reboot. We're under the opportunity, and we're going to start looking at resumes and interviewing for a new special education director. I'm excited about that. We desperately need a vision for special education, because right now, as far as I can tell, we don't have one. Expanded pathways. I'd love for our kids who go to the high school to have all of their interests. Like right now, we have auto technology, which I think is great. I'd love for us to have other options. Whatever we can do that hook kids in to want to go to school, I think is very important. And, to diversify their interests. So if they're interested in certain things and they aren't going to Bay Path or another vocational school, that they have options for things that they're interested in. Because that is a powerful way to learn. When kids see the result of what they're learning, right, and they're able to engage in projects, I think that's when they learn best. And then lastly, I mentioned a couple times, knowing that we need to do some major capital improvements moving forward. I think the last thing I'd say specific to Rutland, and I also had this conversation in Holden, we need to do some work in terms of our growing populations. You'll see, and I don't want to misquote, I think we had 75 more students from Rutland this year. I think we all know there's a lot of residences that are going to come online, and we have to have a plan on how to handle that. And then we're hopeful, that we're going to have some steps that we feel like the district can take in partnering with Rutland and Holden in particular, of how we can negotiate that process. And, I think Member Lavoy would say to us, and I think part of that too is, all right, looking if we can share, are there other schools that we can open up to other residents or things like that. So I think nothing's off the table, but I would say one of the major issues for Rutland I'm worried about is we do have a lot more residents who potentially can come online soon, and we have to be prepared to how to handle that. So just a little bit of a funding overview, and this is when you're all going to boo me. But one thing I always want to make sure I share is that where we stand in terms of funding. And I'm going to talk a little bit about per pupil expenditure, but I want to acknowledge a couple things. It's not a perfect metric, and so it's not perfect. It is what DESE uses in part, though, to match schools or the funding of a district compared to other districts. And I use it because I don't think they created it to make Wachusett look different than other districts. It's what they use to compare about what the funding looks like, okay? But I would share with you all, it's not perfect. And so when you look at our per pupil expenditure, and all the data I'm going to share with you is from fiscal year 21. And it's because I don't have more recent data from that. When I come back to see you next year, I would share with you fiscal year 22. And I will tell you that our per pupil expenditure increased between 20 and 21. So we're lower on the list, which is a good thing compared to the year before. I also hope to bring you other measurements to kind of share what I'm talking to you about, because I understand that people have different feelings about per pupil expenditure. The other thing I want to share with you is the state funding formula. That's something that we really don't have a lot of control of, and that creates a lot of inconsistencies and pretty substantial changes year to year. That's one of the things that's driving Rutland this year in terms of your share, and that the state is making a determination that Rutland can afford more of the minimal contribution. We don't have control over that. I wish I had more information for you in terms of how that's determined. I really don't at this time. But I hope to learn more about it as we move forward. And I think that's difficult. The other things I want to acknowledge to all of you, our member towns have been supportive of our budget. All right, and as far as I know, the last several years, all the towns have supported the budgets put forth. Where the district owns a piece, okay, and I talked about our finances before. The other thing I think the district hasn't done at times is accurately tell you what we need and why and what our expenses are. And I don't think we've done a good job with that. I don't, and nothing that I've seen, and I don't think Michelle's seen, is that the district was purposely overspending last year. But the fact that they were $1.65 million over, it suggests that perhaps they didn't forecast what their budget needs were going to be. And so just a little bit about per pupil, I would just let you know, again, I said it's not perfect. I'd also recognize that we're kind of in the perfect middle, I'll be honest with you, with a lot of our towns. We're not urban, so we don't get the support of a lot of the funding changes. We're not so rural where we benefit from kind of hold harmless or small rural programs. We're in the middle, and we don't benefit from the funding formulas. And a piece, when I talk to you about looking at other ways for us to support the budget, I do feel like there's an advocacy piece that we can do as the district to work with, Mass Association of Regional Schools, to work with our local legislators. I'll be honest with you, I'm meeting with them a week from tomorrow to talk about some of the things we're dealing with in Wachusett. And that's something I think we could do a better job of as the district. And I also want to let you know, nothing that I'm going to show you today, we built upon per pupil expenditures. We did it only on what we think needs are, and then honestly what we've spent in previous years. So just real quick, this graph that you have, it shows where Wachusett is in comparison to some other districts or groups, okay? Right now, or at least in fiscal year 21, Wachusett spent $15,412 on average for each student, okay? Which, look, I acknowledge with you is a lot of money. But when you compare to some other districts, we're spending a lot less. And so DART peers, DART is like what DESE uses for districts that are similar to you. Like for us, the closest one is Shrewsbury, but I think it's Arlington. There are a few others. I can get you a list if you want. But they're basically, when they compare how we do academically and what we look like demographically, those are the districts that they compare us to. And so they spend about $2,000 more than we do per student. All the other regional schools in the state of Massachusetts, they spend about $3,000 more per student than we do. Bay Path, just, you know, and look, vocational education is different than what we're doing in Wachusett, but their per pupil expenditure is over $19,000. State average is $19,500, and then Monty Tech is over $21,000, or it was in FY21. Why does that matter? And again, please know I'm not asking for $13 million or $20 million. I'm just trying to demonstrate when you're as big as we are, the impact it has on your budget. And so if we had a similar per pupil expenditure to the DART schools that we get compared to, it'd be an additional $13 million, $600,000 in our budget. If we had a similar one to the other regional schools in the state of Massachusetts, it'd be $3,000 per student. That'd be over $20 million. Again, I'm not asking for that. And I would say, and this is one of the things that I heard when I presented in Holden, I'm not saying we shouldn't be working hard. I'm not saying we shouldn't be identifying every single penny we can save. I am saying I do feel like we need some things in our district that we don't have right now. And I think we have to look at how we fund our schools to try to get that in place if we want our kids to be truly successful. Because, and this is the last bullet point here, inadequate funding, it places kids at risk. And I'll be honest with you, I'm worried about our kids. We haven't heard about it a lot because we were in the middle of COVID, but our data has been going down. And it's really important that we step in and reverse that trend. And in all honesty, I think the district was fortunate that we weren't keeping data during COVID, because I think it would have been a lot more clear that, hey, we got to look at what we're doing here. All right, and, part of this too is looking at our curriculum. Like I do think when we replace Fontes and Pinnell, hopefully our youngest learners are gonna start making more progress than they have. Just another data point, I would tell you, we're big, and when I talk about how big we are, we're actually the 25th largest district in the entire state of Massachusetts. And this is just a quick plot about where we stand in terms of funding. And of the 25 largest, we still have the smallest per pupil expenditure. Just want to talk a little bit about town assessments, because again, I know Rutland this year, it's a really high number, and I'll try to explain that again. The big thing is the town shares in terms of minimal net school funding. Rutland was told this year by the state they could afford a larger percentage. And so the state's giving us a lower percentage of our minimum school funding. The town of Rutland's paying more this year, and that was their determination. The big one for us here as well is the student enrollment by town. We base that on when we do the data in October, and by numbers, we'll look at it in a second, I believe we were up 75 students in Rutland, where most of other towns were down slightly, and I think Holden was up by about 4 kids. And the reason why that's so important is your percent share of the budget is determined by the number of students you have. And so you kind of got a double whammy where your percentage increased and the state was also telling with your minimum local you could afford more. And then the last piece is discretionary funding. I would share with all of you, you do fund us more than you have to by the state. And so by no means am I saying that you don't support your schools. I'm not trying to say that whatsoever. I'm just trying to have a conversation about what I feel like the school system may need moving forward. And we thank you for that. Some good things, or some decent things in terms of the district. We did get additional Chapter 70 money this year, and we also increased our transportation aid for the district. It's still not funded to 100%, all right, which was promised by the towns. Our transportation's a big issue. We got to look at it. That's another thing we need to make sure we're advocating for. As I've said a couple times, the minimal contributions have also increased. The one thing I'd say that we definitely have to own is that we don't have E&D available with school committee approval to be added as a revenue source for the budget this year. We are hoping that potentially something might happen, but it's hard for us to have any certainty that, we know that will happen. So just a little bit about the district. We're big. We're the largest regional school district in the entire state of Massachusetts. Our student enrollment is 6,739. Our geographic area, this was crazy when we found this out, it's 155 square miles. We're huge. We're huge. And we're the 25th biggest district in the entire state. And our enrollment out of 398, it's top 6%. We get 13 schools in 5 towns. We have 1,400 active employees. That's all positions, so that's like coaches and people who may come in, for an hour, a couple hours a week as additional staff. But we have 569 teaching positions, and that equals 1,079 FTEs. That's full-time equivalent. So basically, if you took all the people and the part-time people and you shoved them all together, that'd be 1,079. 881 of our total employees and 631 of our FTEs are residents of our 5 towns, which I think is kind of nice and important, So the one thing I draw your attention to in terms of Rutland is you had the biggest increase in enrollment across all the towns. I've been 75, it's 78. And a lot of the other towns that went down, only other 2 towns that went up is Paxton went up by 1 and Holton by 4, but you went up by 78. And again, I think that's probably a trend we need to be aware of as we move forward, as we look at our capacity for buildings and alternatives that might happen across the district for Rutland School, for kids to attend. But that enrollment change is effectively 5%. And that's what, again, impacts your share. High school enrollment, it's pretty consistent. 24 of the 78 came to the high school this year. Again, it's about a 5% increase, and so that's pretty consistent around all those things. So what's included in the draft budget? It's 8 class size adjustments, and so these are classrooms that right now we feel like if we don't make an adjustment to, we worry about the ability of the teachers to meet the needs of kids. And we base that on school committee policy recommendations, and so we have recommendations through the school committee of what we would ideally keep our class sizes at, and I'll show you the data behind this. We're recommending 1 English language learner teacher, 2 counselors, a curriculum director to support our curriculum implementation and choices, and also our PD and assessment data, and then that new curriculum to replace Fontes and Pinnell that I mentioned a little bit earlier. And then the last thing that's included in this is some facility improvements for the district buildings. In particular, it's the ECC, that's our Early Childhood Center. And everybody from any town can be eligible for that program. And they do a lot of really good work. Again, like not to bore on the research, but if you can work with a child between 3 and 5, those are really golden ages and kids make remarkable improvements. So it's important that we keep that program to the level it needs to be. I can tell you right now, if we went and visited that program, that and probably Naquag are the 2 buildings I'm most concerned about in the district. And they really need floors. Right now they have rugs that are 15 plus years old, and they're really not hygienic. None of us would want our kids on them. And it's important we take care of those guys. And then the last thing is a generator. When the district we had a tree fall during one of the storms this year, and it took out electricity. We eventually had to shut down central office, and we weren't able to support internet at a lot of our schools, including some of those in Rutland, because it all runs through the central office. And so for that reason, with the technology and all of our systems run through there, but then also for the ECC kids, in case there was an emergency, we feel like it's important that we have a generator for them in those buildings. So just to support the data in terms of where we're looking to add teachers, and I've highlighted the schools that are in Rutland. If we didn't increase at a classroom at Naquag, they would be over 25 students in a classroom. Not a huge deal if you're in grade 5, but if you're in kindergarten and the kids have never had a formal school experience, that's a real lot of kids. And even with the adjustment, there'll still be a little bit over the recommended class size, but they'll be in range with what our other kindergartens are. Same thing with Naquag in second grade. They'd be at about 25 in those classrooms if we didn't make an adjustment. The recommendation is 19. If we're able to add a teacher at that grade level, it will put us back to around 21, a lot closer to what the recommendation is. And at Glenwood, their grade 3, if we don't make an adjustment, they'll be at over 26 students in each classroom. The recommendation from school committee, or the policy from school committee, is 22. This will put them right around 22. It would put them at 21.8.
Just a quick point. So Wachusett doesn't need any additional teachers at all to help this go down? I don't see Wachusett on this list. Did Wachusett get missed, or we?
High school. Oh, the regional school.
Oh, the regional high school. And so I'll be honest with you, there's a lot, and I'll show you all the things that weren't funded. I sit here with you today, I'm about 8 months in, and we haven't looked at a lot of things in district. I had this conversation during our budget approval. I think we have to look at our high school and look at our course offerings and then look at our class sizes. I think we have to look at it both ways, and I'm going to show you in this next slide, it shows it as well. Okay. We have to look at where we need to add teachers, and then we also have to look at, hey, we may not need a teacher at a certain grade level. And that's what this slide kind of takes a look at. And so at Naquag right now, they have one classroom that's below, in first grade, that's below the class size recommendation of 19, and we'd remove a teacher at that grade. Same thing with Glenwood, excuse me. Right now, they have one classroom that's at 19, and we would take away a teacher there. And so we have to do that at the high school too, sir. Like, I think that's one of the things. We haven't, a lot of these adjustments at middle school and high school, we have to get a better sense of what are our true class sizes. It's hard at the high school because they have so many class offerings, which is great, right? But their class size is all over the place. And so they have some disciplines where it's too high. And I'd say, yeah, we got to look at that. It's got to be part of the strategic plan. And then at some point, we have to make some difficult decisions too. And we have to say, okay, is it worth it to have a class or offer a class if you only have 10 students in it? And so we haven't gotten there yet. And so when I talked about like efficiencies, like we got to be making responsible decisions and looking at all of those things. And so it's a very valid point. I'd say the same thing to you about special education. No, I think kind of as I shared earlier, we got a lot of work to do in special education. Until we get somebody in, though, it's hard for me to make recommendations. And as I shared earlier, I don't think we have a vision for special education right now. And one of the big things when I came in and I got charged with school committee is like, we got to be more consistent. We have to be aligned. It shouldn't matter whether you go, to Glenwood or Davis Hill, or Thomas Prince or wherever. As much as possible, we got to have to become more aligned. And right now, when I say 13 schools, 5 towns, we really are 13 schools. Like, we call things differently, we teach kids differently, and that's not efficient, and it's not what's best for kids. And so we got to do a lot of work around that as well. We really do. The reason why we recommended the ELE teacher, we had gotten a report the other day, or a month ago or so, from Jody Brunel, who does these services for the district. We're right now over about 100 hours, close to 100 hours, not servicing kids to the level we should. And so adding additional position, it wouldn't get us all the way where we need to be, but it'd make a healthy step towards doing that. And then for guidance, these are just kind of the ratios, and what this is students to guidance counselors. And so if you look, the Massachusetts average is 362 students to 1 guidance counselor. The national average is about 408 to 1 guidance counselor. Right now in Wachusett, our average is 539 students to 1 guidance counselor. And if we were able to add these 2 positions, it'd get us to around 440 students to 1. Again, it's not there, but we think it would make, headway and get us closer to where we need. And I'll be honest with you, as much as I'm worried about academics for our kids, I'm worrying about them, in terms of their mental health, social, emotional well-being, because it's been hard. Like, I'd be lying to you if I'm not a different person today after the last couple of years. The other thing I would want to share, and this more goes to the director of curriculum positions. I think a lot of times think we're very top heavy in Wachusett, and again, we got this straight from DESE. Our ratio, and this is good. I'm not trying to say honestly. I think if you can add, a lot of times the best place you can put your money is teachers in front of kids, not administrators. So I'm not saying that, but what I would say is we're pretty bare. Our ratio, students to administrators, 163 to 1. Those DART peers, those schools, their average is 121 to 1. Our border district, so if you took our 5 towns and you took all the towns that touch our 5 towns, their average is 117 to 1, and the state average is 100 to 1. I'm not asking to get anywhere near those ratios. I'm just trying to share that. I think if we want to be efficient and be proactive and not always reactive and crisis-driven, we have to look at some of our staffing as well. So these are the unfilled requests that we did, and so I'm sharing this because I know what I just shared with you is significant money, and it's a lot of positions, but these are the positions that we didn't fund this year. And partly why we didn't ask to fund them is because of what I shared with you about needing a strategic plan, needing to become more aligned, and me needing to look at more data, like the gentleman's question about class sizes at the high school. Like we really need to dig into that, and we haven't had the chance to do it as much as we need to. But here, Central Tree, I know Dave, he very much wants to work towards co-teaching, which is having a special education teacher, including kids and supporting kids in a classroom, so everyone's getting a similar experience. And I'm in favor of that as well. Right now, the difficulty is co-teaching means different things at different schools in the district. And you can see, I mentioned health teachers earlier. Dave has that on as well. We lost librarians. I think 4 years ago. I know for Karen at Glenwood, that's one of the things she certainly would like to look at. And then at Naquag, they're hoping for help with a sped teacher, and again, that's something that I do feel like we're going to move forward, but again, I think it needs to hopefully be driven more so.
We lost librarians a lot more than 4 years
Was it more than 4 years ago?
Yeah, it's like 16 or 17.
Oh, really? I had no idea, so thank you.
My mother volunteered at the schools, and the kids now she's going to graduate from high school, so.
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, I didn't mean to misspeak.
I was like, just so you know, that was how long ago that was.
Yeah. And tough. And so what it means in part, right? And I know for Karen at Glenwood, and those positions near the end, those were professionals who were filling some of those. They weren't teaching positions, but it also means the kids may have one less special. And so one of the things I'd love for us to be able to do in the district more long term is have kind of what they call teach and enrich periods, right? And that's a period where you can get the kids together and hopefully, it's like you have a grade level group, and kids who need more support can get more support in one group, and then kids who are ready to move on get to move on and get to do something, so they're challenged. And but to work towards something like that, you need to have things like librarians, so that you have specials and kids can go and have those experiences. And I would admit for library too, it's changing. So it's really more like digital literacy and other things that we want to be prepared for, because we want the kids to have those skills when they move on. All right. So thank you for your patience. Now you get to Michelle, who's
Listen to me.
more eloquent and has numbers.
I don't know that I'm more eloquent, but I have some numbers. Thank you for having me. And I just want to echo what Jim said. It's like, I feel like I've only been here a few months, and we almost like just flat ran out of time with what we could present to you and what with the information that we had to be able to come forth and give a budget that made sense to him and I. So there's lots that, like, I can think of 100 things I'm going to do better next year. That I'm not going to lie to you. This isn't, did the best with what I had. So I'm just going to kind of go over how I prepared the budgets and how I came up with the numbers. So this is an assessment worksheet that I had used. It's actually MARS, which is the Massachusetts Association of Regional Schools. It's something they put forth. So the first line item is your required minimum local contribution. Rutland went up over 4%, over 7%, maybe even like 7.5, but it was like $600,000 or something like that. So starting off, the state was calculating you at a much higher rate of what your minimum local would be. And the second part of that is our Chapter 70 aid. That's what's called our foundation budget. So that's the state saying this is what you are minimally required to spend, your net school spending is your foundation budget. And they do have, if you're ever interested, they do have a big way how they calculate it, and it's very, very confusing, all the factors that they put in to come up with that local, that foundation budget. And then I added to it other revenue that we had. So that second piece was the Chapter 71, or the transportation reimbursement, and that went up. We'll see in another slide. I think it's almost 10% that went up. And then our charter tuition went up as well, a much smaller number. And then we're estimating our Medicaid reimbursement to be about, I think, 175,000 more than last year. We're estimating it actually to probably be a little higher. We're being a little conservative there because there's been some changes in Medicaid, who's getting Medicaid, so, and whether we'll be able to get reimbursed for it. So we're not sure how that's all going to pan out. We have a Medicaid manager who watches that pretty much on a monthly basis, and does our claims for us. And then we have some interest and miscellaneous income that are included, and a big excess and deficiency of 0. Don't know what that's going to be. We're hoping to get that certified by mid-April, and if that does come to fruition, then we'll see if the school committee will approve to add that to bring the assessments down. So then the next piece, I should actually have an idea, is the rest is based on your percentage of students in each of the towns. So it's broken down by how much each individual town, so your percentage went up, like Jim said, 78 students. There was an increase there where you're taking on a bigger percentage of what the remainder of the budget will be. So transportation, and that's net of that Chapter 70 reimbursement, which are, again, a non-discretionary assessment. And then debt service is based on what debt service we have. I think there's 2 pieces of that. There's a Jefferson Oil remediation bond, and then 2 high school bonds that are still there. So that gives like all of the non-discretionary spending that you're required to give to the district, which is $96,910,000 for the overall district. Before I went any further, I went through, and like Jim said, I gave you the draft of our line by line. I went line by line. There's more lines in this. These are total lines, but went line by line and looked at what FY22 actual expenditures were and FY23 actual expenditures. From the salary point of view, what I did is I actually looked at salary lines and went and found every single person where they would land within their bargaining unit agreements that they're in, elevated them to their appropriate level, and put them under an actual salary budget line. In previous years, what they were doing was just taking a 3% increase to the salary budget, not so you couldn't really tell what people were behind there. So I went through every person in the district and analyzed that. And then the other expenditures, not salaries, went and looked at like the actual expenses. Part of the salary as well, there's a salary line that you'll see, it's like called payroll or salary reserve. That includes what the new positions that we're proposing, the increases for cost of living adjustments for unsettled contracts, retirement benefits for teachers that might be retiring. So I think there's a little over $2 million in there. And again, I didn't change anything from what was in the previous years. I haven't done budget adjustments or anything like that, so it looks pretty sloppy. And there's even a little bit of things that are missing that because we haven't completely reconciled our FY22 cash. There's some things that are missing that it looks like we haven't put in there. So electronic payments. So if you look at the special, the charter tuitions and the school choice tuitions, they're not there. We really did get them. They're in there now, but when I actually did this document, they weren't there. It's part of my reconciling. So after doing that, I didn't do any magic. It just came out to that $116,208,000 $797. So that was leaving with a discretionary amount that we were going to look for that 19,298,633. Leaving your total assessments, you can see them, they're along the bottom, but I also gave you, I extrapolated out to the spreadsheet that most of you are accustomed to seeing, to see what your assessments are down at the bottom. So I just used a worksheet that I was familiar with to calculate and then extrapolated it back to the worksheet that you guys are used to seeing.
I think we gave you the worksheet too.
Did you get this worksheet, a draft? Yeah, mine says yeah. So, anyway, so to just go line by appropriations, so salary and stipends, these are our appropriations as you've seen budgeted before. So probably just some ones that need a little bit more explanation. The instructional support is including that new, like the instructional materials, the new curriculum we're proposing, our technology leases, our copier leases. The pupil services, that's a small one. It's for athletics, health services, and other small student activities. And then the other operating costs, that's our school choice and charter school tuition. The others are pretty self-explanatory. So I told you I gave you that little line by line budget. And again, it's what I had to go by. It's not pretty. It will probably paint a little picture for you, but you can see that I looked at the actual expenditures and budgeted for whatever was higher, like the FY22 or 23 actual expenditures. But some that I knew, and the salary and stipends, that line, you know, we have a bunch of unbargained agreements, so that's one of the pieces that's kind of still a big question mark, so we'll see how that goes. The benefits and insurance, we had an increase in our benefits. I think it was I lost my paper with my notes on it here. 8.76% is our insurance increase. Also in there, our Worcester County retirement went up 6.69%. The instructional support line, that big increase there, we're seeing a $440,000 to implement that new district textbook plan to get rid of that Font and Pinellas program. That also includes all other instructional support materials and supplies, and like I said, the technology and copier leases. The operations and maintenance, this was one where I really focused on really what we spent last year. We've been out of, like, that's really been one where every line has been over and underspent because it hasn't been budgeted for properly. We did lock in our fuel, our heating fuel with the French River Educational Collaborative at 3.0692 per gallon. Natural gas and electricity, we're looking at about a 13% increase in those as well. Mark Wild and I, we're planning on tracking those a little bit more carefully next year as far as keeping track of consumption, so that we can plan a little more tightly on that as well. Special ed tuitions, they are not going down. What I did was we had a bunch of salaries that we were paying out of a circuit breaker revolving fund. I pulled all those salaries out and paid salaries as they were. Those circuit breakers for special ed tuitions. So I'm planning on using that circuit breaker to fund, and along with our special ed grants to fund a lot of those special ed tuitions. So I kept it pretty close to where we were, but it's not going down, people. it's going away. The out of district placements are pretty large, as a lot of districts are finding. The other operating costs, again, those were those small charges for the charter tuitions going out and the school choice tuitions going out. So those went up a little bit. Transportation, we're in our last year of a second year extension of our agreement with AA Transportation. So the regular ed transportation is budgeted based on what that agreement was. Our special ed transportation, I just again went based on actual costs that we had this year, and if we need be, we'll use circuit breaker to fund whatever we might over on that. And then our debt service is as agreed the 2 high school bonds and that Jefferson oil remediation going down a little bit. So that's where the appropriation, where the 116,208,797 comes up to. And this is just basically, did a pie chart to see that, as per usual, almost 80% of our costs for operating the district are salary and benefits. And this is just to show you that how our local revenues went up, our state and local revenues went up. So Chapter 70 went up 10%, 10.5%, which is a good increase by the state. A lot of districts did not get that much, so we looked pretty good there. Same with the Chapter 71 transportation reimbursement. That's up 10.41%. Our charter tuition aid, that, it's a small number, so I think that actual formula changed a little bit as well. So that went up 70%, even though it's only $94,000 of an increase. And again, we discussed these other ones. The Medicaid, $125,000 more is what we were predicting. And interest in miscellaneous revenue, I left it the same. And E&D, you can see that the big decrease there. And this was just to point out your minimum local contribution. I knew it was 7.32% increase, almost $600,000. That's where you're really getting hit with I think your overall increase ended up being $1.3 million, and almost half of it is made up right there. And there's where your increase, your town assessment falls based on the numbers. We did calculate that 78, what was it, the 78 additional students, just that factor alone was over $300,000 of an increase as well. So those 2 factors, which so much out of our control, and we understand that, is really what hit the increase in assessment. So we just really said it all, but, the reasons behind the increase are mostly looking what we actually spent, as opposed to just saying, hey, here's these numbers. Let's not add anything to a lot of them, and let's just add a flat percent to some of them. And then others they did calculate. You could tell that they came out and got like what increase in insurance costs were, numbers that they could actually get. But a lot of it was just increasing budget numbers. And I had a hard time. I wouldn't sit at a table and do that, because if I can't stand behind the numbers or have some like confidence in what we're actually spending or what actually are in those salary lines, then I just would feel like I'm flying blind for the rest of this fiscal year. I really do, to not know what's going to happen and what those numbers mean. And then, of course, everyone is fighting these same increased operating costs with utilities, your health insurance, your facilities. Everyone's fighting that same challenge. So, anyway, I think that was, oh, yeah, if you wanted to talk about those, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mentioned a little bit earlier in terms of the other thing we were hoping for is that we can get approved town assessments for capital improvements. The one for Central Tree you see is $52,000. We actually put in for $50,000 in a grant that we're hopeful that we would find out if we get in the next month or so. What those systems are, and they're really the same recommendations we made at all schools. Entry door controls, key fobs, right? So they're electronic. We no longer have keys out there that can be unsafe. They allow our local police and fire to have access to what's going on in the school. And where that's important is if there is truly an event, a tragedy or something like that, they would have real-time information in terms of what's happening in the school to respond. And so that's including indoor, outdoor cameras. Glenwood is a higher price just because it's a bigger layout. One thing I would share with you, and I didn't mention this earlier, we've reinstituted meeting with our fire and police chiefs every month. And so we have met with them. They've seen these plans, they've seen these recommendations, and are on board with it as well. And so, I'll admit I'm definitely not a security expert. I think I barely know how to set an alarm at home. So, but they are, these are the things that they recommended to us that they felt would be important to start to build like a baseline good, safe school system. And that's what we're hoping to do. And I know we're on track to have a Rutland Town meeting on May 6th. We certainly would be willing to come back if anyone has additional information or to find some additional information for you. We'd happy to be send it along, but at this time, happy to answer any questions that people may have.
Go ahead, Darren.
I got a couple questions, but I'd like to start off with a statement. I think you guys have done an excellent job. And we are where we are with the extra kids, 78 kids. I think I understand all that, and it is what it is. I mean, Rutland's grown. It's not your fault that the assessment to the towns is up because of that, and I understand that. I guess and you guys have done an excellent job, and I've talked to a few teachers within the district that are friends and family members that have said that you've been to all the schools a bunch of times and they know your face, and that's awesome. I think you're doing a great job. Congratulations.
Thank you.
I guess this isn't for you guys, but how do we classify the $1.65 million that we don't know where it is? Is it, I've heard some rumors, is it lost? Is it in transition somewhere where we don't know? Did it get spent in the wrong way? Or can someone, maybe Sherry, tell me how, or you tell me what is, someone's got to identify that 1.65 million that's gone.
Yeah.
All right, do you want me to?
Sure, you can do that.
So that number was based on a previous person who was working here and did some estimations in July. And when those reports were run in July, it was showing that we were over budget by that $1.65 million. And it was approved by the school committee to transfer the overspending. The money was in the bank from additional revenues throughout the year. So we have revolving funds. So we would have to take that money out of the general fund and transfer money from the revolving funds to cover those expenses. To be quite honest with you, I'm not going to say it's $1.65 million exactly, because we have not finished up fiscal year 22. We have, since I've been there, have discovered that we have not fully reconciled cash since July of 21. So we're going through anything that came through our system electronically, like went into the bank electronically, whether it be revenue or expense, was not recorded. So we're in the process of recording all that. So I don't know that we're exactly at $1.65 million. I can tell you it's less, and it's overspending in lines that weren't properly budgeted for. It could be overspending in salaries, but we paid the salaries. It's just that they weren't budgeted correctly. They just added 3% to them, so it could be salary lines. It's lines up and down everywhere. You can look at those.
So I guess the question is then, in our last year's budget, that 1.65 million, we have it covered. It's not a deficit.
No, it's not a deficit. No.
You guys got to tell everybody that, because I've heard deficit lost, missing in action, all those things. If it's not, speak up, because we're here to support you. If it's just that we didn't put it to the wrong.
Yeah, we overspent the budget. So what was budgeted for was definitely overspent, but the money is there.
It's not over by 1.65 million, is it?
It was for the budget.
Well, yes,
Yes, it was for the budget.
But that's what Darren's point. You had $10, you spent 16.
Yeah.
So
No.
where did the 16 come from, and why couldn't we use that to defer the expenses in the budget that was there before?
Yeah.
Those are
I
those
guess
hidden
I
revolving
Wait,
accounts.
yeah,
that
so
never got credit
I
for.
guess it's like, we get monies from grants or revolving funds, like we get money from other sources that are not in the general fund.
Right.
Okay, so the general fund, what we budgeted for, what we present a budget to you, that we appropriate this money in the general fund, that was what was budgeted was overspent. But we have other funds, so like we've got grant bonds, or the school choice money's coming in, goes into a revolving fund. We can use those funds to supplement the general budget.
But
So the
why?
cash is fine, like they're not
This-
missing cash.
But why should you have to do that? Why shouldn't you?
We should not have to do that.
Let me just-
Sorry.
What I'm saying is, if you're forced to be in a position to take money out of someplace that you wouldn't take it out of, then it's not there to be able to do other things like the capital improvements. You know, and so now you're taking out you're taking out what would be a funding for a one-time project, capital improvements, to go to
Locks on the doors.
locks on the doors, to a regular spending operation that's reoccurring. And you're not looking at that reoccurrence coming forward. You've taken the money out of the revolving fund already. It's not there anymore. You
Right.
covered other expenses. So if you've got a trend now that says that your prior expenses are going, excuse me, are gonna be higher, and you're not gonna be able to fund it. And that leads me to a question that I'm gonna address after Darren's done. I don't feel comfortable with what you're saying about we covered it. Because covering it doesn't mean that it's being funded
Yeah,
correctly.
I understand what you're saying. I don't feel comfortable saying it either, like, because we're depleting
Other
our.
things.
Correct.
Yeah.
So,
But we don't have a choice in the matter in order to, like, if you've overspent that budget, you've
you
got to.
don't have a choice. But
Right.
I guess,
I don't want to operate like that going
and
forward.
I'm very proud of you, and I think you guys are doing a great job. I think I have no problem with the budget. It is what it is, because we have extra students, and I understand the safety and stuff. I'm not even the least bit upset about that. So, is the school committee gonna, in their
got their
process, I mean, if I overspent my budget at work, my couple $100 million budget doing some projects, I would lose my job.
Correct.
What's the school committee's response gonna be to this when we figure out what happened? Are we gonna do and then a forensic audit by someone else? Is that what Desi coming in is doing? Because if you're telling me you're 1.65 and you think it may be less, I'm still a little scared. And what you don't know, and I think you're gonna find out, you're smart. But I think there's skeletons somewhere that you don't know about. And I guess if the fire department overspent by a couple $100,000 in Rutland, we would probably, someone would be in trouble. And it could be felony charges or whatever, however you want to go with it. And there's a lot of people in the district that left kind of quick here lately, in the last couple of years, and that's got nothing to do with you guys. You guys are exposing the problems. But the problem is, we're 1.65 million, and everybody's like, it's frustrating that we got to this point. I'd like to know from the school committee, what are you guys gonna do at the end of this to make this right? I think legally we should have, it's gotta come out. Because it's not their fault. They're just trying to cover up this pile of crap that they got stuck with. Fix it, not cover it up. They're trying to fix it, but they're stealing from here, robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's not fair. So Sherry, as the chairman of the school committee, what's your plan?
I don't have a plan, and I can only speak for myself in this regard. I mean, I can speak for the committee once we make decisions, but without bringing something before the committee, I won't speak to what will be done in the future. I can tell you that I know I personally have asked for information for the last couple of years. Just because we asked for information doesn't mean we got it. I mean, we received reports, they looked okay. Like, there was nothing obvious, nothing blatant that said that we were overspending at that point. If we had, there would have been further questions, right? These are things that are just getting uncovered now.
This is the most transparent, excuse me,
With-
1 second, that we've been since I for a bunch of years.
Yep.
And
This is the best we've seen in all
Ever.
the years I've been on the finance committee.
Yes.
as a matter of fact, we used to get a budget that it looked like hieroglyphics. Karen went to the state and requested a budget. They gave it to us. They said, "Oh yeah, we'll give it to you." We couldn't even put the line item. There was codes in there. I don't know. We would have had to go on to MIT to those
But I'm
science
gonna be
guys to
hon-
figure it
But I'm
out.
gonna be honest with you, I hold all of you guys accountable for that, not you two. Because all of you knew this
100%.
wasn't being done, and all of you came to us and said, please support the schools.
But they didn't know it was 1.65 out
But
of
they
whack.
I
didn't
did
see a
not.
line-by-line budget either.
Time out.
That's the thing. If you're not gonna see it, how can you put it forward? Because we're not just gonna say, please support the town, don't worry about it, we're good for it. Which is what they were doing. Go ahead, Matt.
So I'm going to speak for myself as a school committee rep. So I agree with your statement that this is very transparent. What I don't agree with, and the superintendent knows this, Sherry knows this, Michelle knows this, is this narrative that we are underfunded on a per pupil expenditure. I was educated as an accounting minor at Bentley University, and I spent a lot of time in finance. And when I look at a per pupil expenditure, I look at a total budget of expenses divided by the number of students. Tonight, we were shared with peer districts of Shrewsbury and Arlington. Well, in doing research, Arlington's per pupil expenditure, which they publish in their budget presentation, is $15,000 in 2023. It is not at that dark peer average. Shrewsbury, who just approved a $79 million budget with 5,885 students, spends $13,000 per student. So I've had a challenge all along with the way that the narrative is that we don't spend enough. We spend more. And what my challenge is on this committee, and I brought it to the chair's attention, that we have a business and finance committee that is not represented by business professionals, accounting professionals who are asking, where is this money being spent? We have 5 towns. We have an opportunity to take those 5 towns and be more efficient than a one-town system like Shrewsbury. And that has been my challenge all along, that we're looking at a budget based upon inefficient spending in the past, and we still don't know what does it cost to educate a student. And I will take the responsibility that I have not sat on Business and Finance Committee in my 7 years on the school committee. But when we have a reorganization, I am going to make a request to the chair to chair that subcommittee. And I can guarantee the people here at Rutland that I will get to the bottom of following the money, because your statement about business, I have a budget on my team that I have to run, and if I'm not on budget or on target, I'm communicating with my board of directors or my superiors, and as a school committee, to your point, I'm a board of director too, and I don't hold you all accountable, but when we had an administration who failed to look at per pupil and expenditure, I brought it to your attention at previous meetings, and you came back and you presented the same information. And I just emailed you the actual specifics of it.
Yeah.
And I sit there and I wonder, why do we look at DESI and say, we don't know how they figured out that number, but because it plays favorably for us, we want to use that as a narrative for our budget. That is not how prudent business and finance works. You look at actuals, you budget on actuals, and you don't worry about Arlington, which is right next to Boston.
Yeah, can I answer?
Yeah, but let's, this is more between the school committee. I'd rather
But
stick
this-
with what.
I want to make a statement.
Go right
that-
ahead, and
that
then,
you-
but then we're
I
gonna
just
stop and
wanted
move
to
on. Yes.
You
address
talked about the school
I-
committee,
I
but I
look-
want to say, I'm one person of a body of 22, and I've been
I get it.
advocating and fighting, but you have a groupthink mentality often on the school committee that doesn't want to challenge.
Go ahead and answer that,
I
because I've
just
got
wanted to
about 12
share,
more.
yeah, and I just wanted to share because I hope in future years to bring you other measures to prove the points I'm saying to you. I think the hard thing with any data point, and one of the things I'll share with you is I'm very aware of Shrewsbury's per pupil expenditure, but I would also say if you look at them and you look at their budget, they have no operating costs in terms of facilities and other things, and that skews 100% what they get reported, and that's part of the problem with the metric. But I'm happy to continue to, and I will do a better job of bringing the information to the towns and the committee. But I'm not going to ignore something that I think can be used comparatively in some measure, especially when it's as stark as the information is. So I think I can offer you just a little bit of information in terms of where we did overspend. And so from my recollection, when we did this in July, the three big areas where the district really spent over what they had allocated for budgets was facilities. And, you know, Michelle, that's partly why she did that adjustment and showed why it had to go up a lot. It was salaries. And so kind of, again, when Michelle made the point, like, where we were putting people and how much we were budgeting for, that was a big one.
It was a substitute.
And then it was substitutes. That was the third one I was going to say. And so
And
we
that
had a
was
lot
crazy.
more. Yeah, and so we had a lot more, you know, there was some crazy data I shared with school committee during our budget retreat. And I'm not, like, I just want to, not claiming that people were, you know, calling out inappropriately. It's just we had a couple mandates there where, you know, if you were sick or you got COVID, you had to be out for 5 days or 10 days and all that stuff. But just a crazy number. We experienced 1,000 more absences between September and December than we traditionally did a couple of years ago. And so some of the things that really impacted the budget, I do think people could have planned for them better, but I also think they were somewhat unexpected. I would share with you, if we found a skeleton, we would share with school committee, and I know they would encourage us to share it publicly. We haven't come across one yet. That doesn't mean there isn't one. We just haven't come across it yet. And I think when we share, we don't know if it's $1.65 million. It's because we're trying to be honest. It's like, were we off on that too last June? We don't think it's more, but we think it might be less, which will be a good thing, because to everyone's point and everyone said, hitting your revolving accounts to balance a budget is not the way to operate.
And can I say one thing? Just, I know you guys want to hold the school committee accountable, but before I walked in the door, they did have an audit done of what was going on. CLA was hired to do an audit of both the HR and the business office and I thank them for that, like, because they didn't let me walk into
This,
the school committee did.
no,
Right,
you walked
right.
into a
So
mess, but
I
not as
like,
bad. Yeah.
yeah.
At least you knew what you were
So
looking at
that-
when you said,
So that was done last summer. And, you know, they've been supportive of me trying to catch up. I've been honest with them. And I think, like, you know, they've motioned to try to bring additional people in to do a deeper dive into what's going on. They haven't taken it lightly. But you wouldn't know. Like Jim will say all the time, he didn't know what I was walking into. He thought he knew, and then I got in there, and it's every day. I'm not going to kid you. Every day is exasperating. Every single day. So, like, I'm a pretty little miss audit myself, and I'm not going to not share this stuff with them. So I think they beat themselves up enough.
Well,
I don't know, maybe not, but I'm just.
Not as if it's your tax dollars.
No, I know, but
I think
they didn't
too,
do nothing.
We need to understand scope on this a little bit. I mean, you're putting out a big number in your head, right? 1.65 million, but it's about 1% of the total amount of the budget overall for the school. So, you know, when you say that the fire department being over $100, you know, a couple $100,000, well, that's 20 to 30% of their budget. That's a huge difference. So this is 1% of their budget, roughly. Obviously, it's a little bit more, but like, you know, 1.5, being over budget 1.5%, if you haven't been over your own personal budget by 1.5%, you're not living your life.
well,
Sarcasm.
I guess, excuse me. Darren's personal budget can go over any which way he wants. Really? When, if my wife lets me.
Right, exactly. There you go.
But when you're spending, when I give you and elect you and put you in a position for my money, you should do a better damn job of doing it.
Right.
That's all. I'm not saying they're not, it's only one point, but put it into perspective, you can spend your budget any way you want, but it's, we entrust everybody with our money, we give them a lot of it, and they do a great job. The schools are good, they need some more money, I understand that. But they broke our trust. And if you, I guess you don't need a forensic audit, you had one, so you're good. When do you,
We didn't have a forensic
We
audit.
need a forensic audit.
you don't need one?
No,
we
they
do.
didn't have
Okay,
one.
good. And Matt, I'm on your team, man,
I'm on your team, I'm on everyone's team
But
here.
when do you guys think you're gonna put this into perspective? Like, when are you gonna say, "Whew, let's move on to the next year"?
Oh my gosh.
Is this gonna go through this budget season into next year?
Do you want, I'll give you my goals. I'm probably being a little overly optimistic. We have a deadline to get our end of year reporting to DESE, which is our financial reporting to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed, and to the E&D certification to the Department of Revenue by mid-April. April 15th is what the deadline they're asking us, but they're working with us. We're meeting with the top people every week to see where we're at. I'm hoping to get cash reconciled by the end of this month. I have 15 days.
Good luck with
But you want to know what? I said that about getting the budget done. I sat there and I'd say to Jim, oh my God, I only have 10 more days to like figure out all these numbers. And then it'd be like 9 more days. And somehow I did the best I could for the time frame that I have. So I've talked with the auditors. They're also in the same frame of mind of you need to do the best you can by the time you get there, because if you're not 100%, there's a materiality that we can take into consideration that you got to move on and get it done. I've asked the auditors, and they said that they're wrapping up most people's FY22 audit, and they said, like, we're all yours. You'll be our top priority. I'd love to get FY22 wrapped up before the end of FY23, so by June, to have audited financial statements. That's my goal. It's overly ambitious. And then I got to move on. I'm hoping while they're doing the FY22 audit, I will literally have about 2 months to figure out where the heck we are with FY23.
So, do we expect any penalties or whatever you would want to call it from DESE? Have you guys heard any rumblings that we should all prepare?
The only thing they've done is we are behind one circuit breaker payment, which is like $1.1 million.
Did they tell us that was why though?
I'm gonna bring it up again. I'm hoping that they'll release it. We haven't, but we've gotten the threatening letters that they'll hold up Chapter 70 funding, which is, $2.2 million a month. We don't want that happening. So, but yeah.
I mean, you're working with them. I mean,
We are working
we
with
honestly,
them.
yeah, we honestly don't think so.
I don't think so. I think they've been pretty supportive. They know I'm working hard. I have a lot of people helping too. People like that can get the work done. Yeah, no, I think we're gonna do it. I don't think there's gonna be any long-term ramifications.
I'd rather have the glass half full than half empty. How's that? You're doing a good job.
No, I have one more question for you guys. We have Markham as our audit firm. Were they the audit firm that missed the 2021 audit, didn't come in and do the audit?
They came in to do the audit.
Yep.
And they didn't get the information they needed from the previous administration. They were there to
Was there a
get that
letter given to
done.
the school committee for that?
From Markham, you mean?
Yeah.
No, not
To my
that, as
knowledge.
I'm aware.
I wasn't chair then, but not to my knowledge.
Yeah, my guess is they would have said it to the administration, and then the administration should be sharing it with the school committee.
It's funny how it all
Or
goes.
not.
Or not.
Okay, so my thing would be is, if they're not going to be transparent with the people who oversee, we need to look for a new audit firm, as far as I'm concerned, because there should have been a letter that went out when they didn't get invited back, and now we're in 2023 and they still haven't been invited back. I think that's a problem. I mean, every year, I make sure that I see the financial statements for the town. I don't just go, Oh, I'm sure they got it done. I ask, and I keep asking, and I'm trying to understand. We have 22 people on our school committee, and no one asked?
That's not true.
Okay,
That is
so.
not true. How many times, even since you guys
No,
have
no,
been
no,
there in advance,
not
like,
before that,
well, I'm
not,
just saying,
but
I've only-
2021.
I wasn't involved in business and finance nor the chair in those times, and I still asked,
Well, that's the thing,
but we still didn't get the information.
Well, Sherry, it's been 2 years and you guys,
Right.
these nice people
I
sitting at
agree.
the end of the table finally found it out.
Right.
And if they weren't here, it'd be still hiding it.
Right.
I agree.
So you guys gotta crack the whip. Oh my God. It's only 1% of the budget, but are you kidding me? It's my money you guys blew. It's my money. It's her money. It's his money. It's everybody that's been in this town.
Yep.
Been in that school. I've been in that school district. I've lived in this town for 50 years. Been in that school district since 1972. And you guys, it's almost criminal that it's only 1.6 million, and it's okay. It's a percentage of it. I understand Alex, but it's my money. If Alex wants to spend 1.6 million of his own money, that's different. We entrusted the school committee members and the previous administration to do the right thing. It's wrong. I'm sorry. And thank you very much for finding it out. This is not an outburst on you guys. I'm really a nice guy. I think you guys are doing a great job, but I am sick to death that people, oh, wow. And if they weren't here, they'd still be blowing smoke. If they didn't figure this out, Matt, we'd still be worse off.
Could you find out what these people use to calculate PPE? Because I hear this every single year, and I've never been able to get an answer. So I would expect an answer by the end of April. Could you get me
I'm
that?
pretty sure DESI uses that end-of-year report that we file to
Right.
certain
I
data
just want
off
to know
that
without
end-of-year
having to
report.
read a whole
'cause-
slew of 100 pages to find out
Yeah.
what it is. I kind of wanted to, it's this line, it's this
This-
line, it's this line, it's this line,
How
and
they're
then we can do it.
calculating.
Because I agree that they could be all doing it different ways.
I might be able to find that out by looking at the end-of-year report. They might actually
You got a ton of
calculate
stuff
for
to
us.
do. Let him do it.
But honestly, like we're
Aren't you glad you came?
But honestly, we're just like, we're just using it to, this is where we measure up against the other. It's not like we're building our budget on it at all. And I expressed to Matt, like, we do need to come up with what we want to use as a metric against ourselves from year to year. We're just not quite there yet. It's not used to be, like, we're not using it to stuff anything down anybody's
No,
throat.
no, it's just something we've always seen. And
You've
and
always
I've
seen
never
it, and
gotten
you're
an
sick
answer.
of seeing
Never got an
it.
answer.
You're sick of seeing it, and we
Without
probably
knowing what
shouldn't,
it is.
like, we didn't know what we should keep in or take out. That's the tough thing. We're on a little balance here of what do you want to see and what do you not want to
There
see.
was money
So we're
put
figuring
as-
it out.
There was money put aside during COVID for transportation, because we didn't use transportation for, 18 months, and we had a transportation reserve. Was that one of those revolving funds that went to the 1.65?
Maybe.
Yeah, I know it was circuit breaker, that got tapped. We did school choice. I can get you that information.
Because I just know that there was money.
It was, we took some well, we didn't actually make any of those transfers yet, but they were scheduled as far as transferring. Our overspending was school choice revolving, some ESSER grant funding, some circuit breaker funding. There was some another insurance revolving funding. But that transportation revolving that you're talking about, that's a big anomaly to me right now.
Okay,
I'll figure it out.
that's fine. Thank you. I appreciate the honesty, because we're not used to that. Pete, you got anything?
Yeah, I do. Just a statement one. I'm gonna back what Darren said. I think a breath of fresh air. I think this is really great that you guys are doing what you're able to do, and you're doing such a good job at it. But a couple of things come to mind, and that is, you talk about the district and as large as it is and how spread out as it is, et cetera. And then you made the statement that there are 13 schools and they are all individual. That has got to be exceptionally inefficient. That if they're all running their own little shops, And there's no opportunity to be able to optimize on the operation. I mean, I understand the towns are all individuals and they're looking for their support, but there's got to be a way that we can look at those kinds of things and apply some efficiencies and get those things organized. A statement. Another statement is, I walk around my neighborhood in the morning, and occasionally people will stop me now that they know that I'm on the finance committee, and they ask me what's going on, and I will tell them that we're in the process of the budget, and select board and finance committee are meeting, trying to figure out how we're going to come up with the money to fund the budget next year. And their first response to me today, last time it was out Monday, was, it's the schools again, isn't it? So there's a perception here that the reason that we may have to do a override is totally because of schools. I'm with Darren. I think that the job that's being done by the schools, the education of the children, the care that is being taken is stupendous. It's fantastic. But there's a perception out there. We're asking the departments in town to be able to talk through what it is that they're asking for and what will happen if they don't get it. It's communications. We're going to be providing, or there's going to be a communications process that will go on. I'm sort of the opinion that the district should be in that same mode of communicating with all the towns, but Rutland, because it's got a big increase, and it's going to have an impact. And we talked last week in our in our joint meeting about what's going to happen if the override passes. What's the impact going to be? And the impact is going to be that some people are going to end up having to pay, well, no, everybody's going to have to pay more money for their taxes, but some people may not be able to afford it. And that's going to be devastating to some people that have been living in the town forever. And there are things that the select board is looking at to be able to try and mitigate some of that. But it's a communication. If they know what's going on, they're more likely to be able to go ahead and support the efforts. I just think that there's got to be a way that you can, through the newspapers or something, explain some of the things that you know that are going on here. And then finally, you're scaring me to death. I said at the meeting, at the business management meeting, there's a lot of stuff up here that you haven't done yet. You're looking to do a lot of stuff this year. You want to do a lot of stuff going in the future. It scares me that even though there may be money, we won't be seeing the same problem with money. You just don't have the funding out there to be able to do some of the stuff you're going to be looking to do. And you're going to be coming back to us and looking for more money again in future years, and that's going to be a problem. I'm done.
Understood. I accept everything you said.
Okay, thank you.
For the last couple of years, we've been told about the importance of socio-emotional counselors.
Yeah.
All I'm going to ask is, don't tell me we're going to put them in, and next year tell me that we didn't have time to put them in, or we didn't have the money. So please put them in if they're that important, because we've been hearing about this for a long time. Anybody else? You're off the hook.
I didn't even make cookies. Right? We're not off to a good start.
Write that down.
I will add that.
Someone's got something
I
to
think
say.
someone's on the phone.
What's that?
Someone's on the, go ahead.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Sorry, this is Kumar Gavarlan. You know, so hey, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. No, forgive me. I put a comment in the chat. I don't know if it got through, but or just to provide some feedback. I personally agree with everybody at this table. I in full disclosure, it's out there, but I did sit on the Business Finance Subcommittee. My first year on the school committee, I sat as a member, and I was quite questioning of some of the things we were being told by our former business director. Every meeting, just Excel pages of numbers were provided to us. Never once was a complete picture provided. How much money did the district have? What do we have in the accounts? How many accounts do we even have? All basic questions, and I don't have a financial background. Then came the moment we found out that there was a $1.6 million deficit. And what blew my mind, as well as most of the members on the committee, was the fact that we were told we were going to have an excess amount coming our way, that we could then find a way to appropriate into a budget that we thought was accurate. And that didn't happen. And then to what Dr. Riley mentioned, we find out that facilities, the director of facilities gets up in front of this committee and also in front of the business finance and says, here's what my budget was for the year, and here's what it actually was. And I remember sitting there thinking, how is that possible when you have 13 buildings and somehow there is a naive notion that the number you put out at the beginning of the year didn't match your expenditures and things that came up there at the end of the following year. And so at least I can say this, I don't like it. I didn't like it then, but it was what we unfortunately had to work with. And what I can say is at least now on Business and Finance, we are trying. And actually, and Michelle and Dr. Riley, they'll both speak to it. We're making efforts in the right direction. Without their transparent and honesty, we wouldn't be there. Does it still bother me? It absolutely does. When a CPA living right down on Palmagussit asks me, how much money do you have in your accounts, and I don't have the answer, that is disheartening. Because it's just an honest evaluation of what is it that you can tell every taxpayer in the district. So I just wanted to provide that feedback. And you know, all of you have brought up great points, but all I can say is I would love Member Lavoie to join next year. I think anybody who wants to take an honest, open, and transparent look on the committee, I definitely welcome. I think there are things we are yet to still uncover, but we're headed in the right direction. So I just wanted to provide my input. But you know, for all of you as elected officials, I also thank you for your input, because I'm sure that we have heard the honest truth from the people of Rutland, and I hear it as well from just my own neighbors. And I think honesty and knowing honest answers is far better than just saying all they want is to provide more money and do more money. And that is not what I want. I mean, I don't think there's a single person in town who would look forward to an override or taxes going up, but at least to know where we stand on a good, solid foundation is a good start. But I just want to thank you guys. I just want to provide that feedback.
Thank you.
Wait, can I just make sure, I'm not against this budget.
Really?
I'm against the fact that we swept $1.65 million under the table, and the school committee, it's their fault.
Yep.
They run the thing.
It is.
And it's, you guys weren't given the right information, but
You also
you
didn't
know
ask
what?
for it.
If Matt loses $1.65 million at his job, Matt's looking
Sorry.
for a new job. So I think you guys
You
gotta
can
take a
ask,
hard
and you
look
can ask,
at
and you
yourself.
can ask, but you don't come to us and tell us that it's a good budget if you didn't have the information. You're not gonna you're not gonna change my mind, and I tell everybody that, so.
You're not gonna see Darren stand up on the town meeting floor and fight the school budget, but, because I can see what you guys did. This is the first time ever we understand it. But you might get hammered a little bit on the town meeting floor about the 1.65 million.
Yeah.
And I would hope that all the school committee members would be there, because it's gonna be fun. And you guys, it's not, you guys are giving bad information, but somehow, you guys gotta make everybody have trust in the school committee again. And I don't know what you get, blood from a stone, or however you guys wanna do it, but this is not right. It's my money, it's his money. And you guys let 1.65 million of it just go away, and it bothers me. And that's, we're hoping that that's all. And we haven't even started the new year. So, I'm done. I'm sickened by it.
Go. It's getting late. Go.
Oh, no, it's not him.
Run.
I'll shake his hand. I don't think I'm not upset with these guys. They're doing the right thing.
No.
There's a few people on my left that I'm not happy with.
Yeah. Truthfully, Michelle, this is the most we've ever seen. So thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You'll
You
get
upset
more
with
next
Ted?
year.
Why you upset with Ted?
Steven, it'll be better. I
I've
say
been
that to
asking
Jim all the
every
time.
year since I've sat on the committee.
I have a
so.
long way to go. Like, it's a lot, but there's still much improvement.
So thanks for the
happy.
courage
Yeah,
for
I'm
coming in.
trying, trust me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Appreciate your time.
Get an asset, man.
There is a bar across the street.
It's fine. I'm Michelle.
We can use the revenue in town, actually.
5 minutes.
Are you sure?
Sure, we're gonna recess for 5 minutes while we switch out the schools. Is everybody all set?
Yeah.
Don't all answer at once,
No, we're
please.
good. We're waiting for you to calm down.
Okay. It's all yours.
Thank you. And good evening. I'm Kyle Brenner, proud superintendent of Southern Worcester County Regional Vocational School District, or Bay Path. With me is our business manager, Irene Houle, and I think you know your school committee representatives, Anne Marie Pantos and Joe Becker. So we're going to present our adopted budget FY24 for Bay Path this evening. So next slide. Yeah. Let's try that.
I'm gonna try this one down here. Okay. Here we go.
All right. So our funding sources, Chapter 70 and Chapter 71 estimates are based on the governor's budget that was submitted February 23rd. Our estimated Chapter 70 funding for FY24 is $14,219,280. Our estimated Chapter 71 funding is $1,253,844. These are preliminary estimates subject to change. As you know, it goes through the House and they deliberate the budget. So the impact on Bay Path, you can see a comparison of FY24 and FY23. Chapter 70 increased by $1,325,599, and the minimum contribution increased by $718,993 for our 10-member towns. Our required net school spending increased for a total of $2,044,592. Our financial information for FY24 total budget for assessment is $28,077,301, and our member town assessments are at the minimum. Our budget includes a debt service assessment of $1,553,503. And again, our operational budget does not require funds above the minimum contributions by our member communities. Our total member assessments are $12,392,000.
Yes, sorry, I went back. Sorry about that.
443. Somebody wants to get out of here.
Trying to see how much you
Talk fast.
Although our assessments are at the minimum, it's important to note that the contribution levels have increased for our member towns by $718,993. Our member town transportation assessment has been reduced by $300,000, reflecting the use of our regional transportation reimbursement fund. So our total Chapter 70 revenue is $14,219,280. Our school choice assessment is $263,266, with our Chapter 71 busing aid of $1.253 million, and the use will be using $75,000. That's an increase of $25,000 from years past, on the recommendation from our auditors to increase our contribution to OPEB. And we'll use $100,000 from our E&D fund as well to fund our net school spending obligation. A little tough to see up on the screen, but what, look at mine. So this shows our statement of assessments. Our Chapter 70 is $14,219,280,000. We deducted $263,266 for our school choice assessment, and the assessment minimum contribution total is $10,695,233. So you can see that there's no assessment above the minimum contributions. You see our contribution from our E&D to OPEB transfer of 75,000 and our E&D contribution of 100,000 for net schools spending gap from the previous year, bringing our total operational budget to $24,826,247. Our transportation budget, our Chapter 71 funding is a large increase, as our colleagues before us said, it's to about 90% of the regional transportation. Not quite yet 100, but a lot closer than years past. And then our the assessment, or our total cost for transportation is $1,697,551. We put in our transportation reimbursement fund of $300,000. That leaves a total assessment to our towns of $143,707. Our debt service, you can see finally our principal is higher than our interest, equates to $1,553,503. Our sewer betterment fee dropped off this past year. We are now at 0, so there's no more sewer betterment fee or capital there. And that brings our total operating budget to $28,077,301. And again, add in the school choice assessment, that's $28,340,567 for proposed FY budget of $28,077,301. So what will we spend the money on? Our budget highlights are to add a new full-time equivalent to our veterinary science program. That'll bring it to 3 instructors and a full load of all 4 years on that. We're looking to adopt, we talked about social emotional learning and the mental health. We're happy to say that we'll be adopting a BRIGHT program. So that's Bridging Resilient Youth Transitions. What that will do is give us space, give us service, and give us access all day long for our students that are experiencing difficulties in mental health. It's all dedicated. We'll be adding a new moderate disabilities teacher as well as a board-certified behavioral analyst to provide the psychological services there. We're looking, it's called an MCAS specialist, but it's really a testing specialist. That's someone dedicated to all the testing, AP testing, MCAS testing, access testing for our L students. And they'll be able to work with our students and dive deep into the data to see where the most critical needs are and feed that back to our teachers as well as our admin team on that, so we can increase our MCAS and testing scores on that. We're looking to add an instructional coach. That is someone that's a non-administrative role that will be in the classrooms to see where our strengths are and where our weaknesses are. Our strengths to identify as resources to other teachers, and our needs that we can identify the needed PD to increase teaching and learning. And we're looking to add a guidance counselor for our freshmen. Our freshmen experience the most transition. They're coming from our 10-member communities. They're no longer with their colleagues that they've been with for the previous 8 years. That's a transition. While they're with us going through the Explore, they continue to transition every 2 weeks from one shop to another shop until they, mid-year, get their selected shop and then can settle in on that. A dedicated guidance counselor there will bring all our guidance counselor teacher-student ratios down more in line with what the state recommendation of 250 to 1 would be. We'll continue to use the SOA funds. We're happy that the SOA funds, Student Opportunity Act, are baked into the foundation budget. This will mean that hopefully nothing's going to sunset on us and transfer that obligation to the district to fund that. We'll continue to fund our professional development to all our staff, especially the programs focused on social and emotional issues for our students. We'll use the SOA funds to provide programs and speakers to our students to address issues such as bullying, bias, mental health, and the other many issues. We'll create a full-time equivalent position for our athletic director. Previously, this has been a stipended position that hasn't been able to keep pace and keep interest in providing that athletic director. Again, part of the social emotional is robust extracurricular activities. We know that sports go a long way in improving student performance on that. This will give a dedicated professional to that area to schedule. A lot of the MIA meetings are during the day. We won't be pulling somebody from the classroom and putting a sub in there. So it'll keep our highly qualified teachers where they should be. We'll create a position for an athletic trainer. That's a requirement that I think a lot of districts are seeing. For football games, we have to have a professional athletic trainer or an EMT. Whether it's a home game, we have to fund that. If it's an away, and pay that. So we're looking forward to adding an athletic trainer on that. We'll add a new IT network technician. One of the many benefits of, not many, but one of the better benefits of the COVID is the high infusion of electronics and technology to all our classrooms. And this will give us another support person to keep those running and help our teachers use the technology that's in their classrooms. We'll create a full-time position for a human resources specialist. A lot of that has been done with the minimal admin that we have. This will dedicate someone to ensure that the PD is done on an annual basis, an update on policies and procedures, so we can minimize any issues that we have with staffing on that, to do the posting, to do the queries, the SAFIS, and all of that. We'll upgrade our financial HR software system because it is, I used the wrong term, end of life, not manufactured discontinued, just end of life. Not that anybody looks to roll over a system as large as that. It's a big undertaking, but we need to bring it up to speed so that we can streamline our processes, both in HR tracking of absentee as well as all our accounting on that as well, and get out of paper and more electronics.
And self-serve employee access.
Right.
Yeah.
We've included wage increases for all our employees. We have several collective bargaining agreements that are up and currently under negotiation, so we've accounted for those. And this is the first increase in our health insurance premium since 2018, and we're looking at a just over a 6% increase.
Just over 6%.
So we've accounted for supply material accounts due to the inflation for all of our programs. We talk about per pupil expenses, and if you did notice on our previous colleagues' slides, the vocational schools are higher because of the equipment and materials that's needed in all of the shops. So our students can bake and can build and can weld on that. So all those costs have skyrocketed. We've included a pretty good increase for inflation on those. Also, new textbooks for our math, our science, some of our shops, and social studies. We've included shop equipment upgrades. We haven't had an upgrade in our advanced manufacturing for the Haas machine that is near end of life. Our metal fab, all the MIG-TIG welders need to be updated on that, and we've got to update our SimMan in health tech. We've also included a cost for a building facility use study. We funded a renovation. We are at max capacity now. So we're just looking to better utilize this space, and we're looking for a space for the Bright program, space for our increasing dental health. We've kind of moved some stuff around to accommodate our veterinary assisting program, and we'd like to have a dedicated space for that too. So rather than make some best guess from the school committee and we've included some money to bring in a professional and look at that and help us so we do it once and we do it right. And we're looking to add a new full-time equivalent custodian as well. So the freshman seat allocation, you can see for our 10-member towns, it's based off the capital population in each one of our towns for a total capital population of 17,769. Rutland is 1,684 of that, which equates to 9.48%. And we use that times our total freshman seat allocation of 325 students. That gives Rutland 31 incoming seats. Foundation enrollment total for Bay Path, you can see FY24 and FY23 foundation enrollment there. In the comparison, Rutland has a difference of 10 seats on that, so that's a negative 14.9.
So those 78 new students that you have aren't coming to Bay Path.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, yeah, I have a feeling that they're that age.
So you're saying the upperclassmen have left from Rutland?
No, I think you've got more incoming younger kids.
But then this one's saying we lost some.
Right.
Yes.
From
Big
Bath.
Beth, yes, okay.
So it could be that, right, you had a higher number of graduating seniors from last year, and we just haven't caught back up on that one.
But kids aren't I guess my question is, kids aren't leaving.
No,
No.
That's good.
nope,
They're just not coming in.
they just,
No.
No, it just shows that you may have had an exceptionally high senior class, because at the end of the day, let's say that you don't use all 31 of your freshman seats. Those two, let's say you use 29, those 2 seats are going to go to another town. So maybe there was a year when you got more seats,
Right.
because somebody didn't use all of theirs.
Right.
So they now graduated, you know, and you
and
don't
they-
have as many behind them,
Understood.
yeah.
right. Again, this slide shows the foundation enrollment for the town of Rutland, which feeds the Wachusett Regional School District as well as Bay Path, and the totals for that, and the increase or decrease. So there you see Wachusett increased by 78 and Bay Path decreased by 10 seats allocated there.
Can I
Yes.
ask a question? So, we got 31 seats right now. Let's say we had 35 kids that wanted to go.
Mhm.
You're budgeting us at 31.
Yep.
For whatever reason, all 35 end up going because there's room, because another town doesn't send them all. Does our bill go up?
Everything's based on last year's
Yeah.
numbers. So the foundation enrollment FY '24 is actually October '22 numbers. So it's October enrollment that school budgets are based on. So we're always
Yeah.
1 year behind.
Yeah, you're lagging a year.
So you pick it up next year.
Any other questions?
Can you go back?
So the town of Rutland, this just shows the required local contribution calculation on that. The current year required contribution, $8,694,199. Municipal revenue growth factor for town of Rutland is 4.99%, and the FY '24 preliminary required local contribution was $9,128,040. And excess shortfall local effort, $86,942 for a required local contribution for FY '24 of $9,214,982. And down below, you can see the breakout of Wachusett and Bay Path on there. We make up 5.39%. So again, each district's share of the required contribution, you can see FY '24 and FY '23, Town of Rutland, Wachusett Regional, and Bay Path, again, 5.39%, which is a 1.17% decrease from FY '23 of 6.56. And the totals are down the bottom for a change of $520,783.
Change? No, change was 73,721.
Oh, total change, sorry.
Yeah.
I jumped down. I'm trying to look down.
Don't
I haven't-
misrepresent that
Yeah, no, $73,721 decrease.
So hopefully we're helping,
Yes.
at least for this year. I'd like to see
Good
more kids
catch.
back in.
Good catch.
And I'll take this one just for a second. So this is the one that shows you what your capital population was. In the long run, there has been a decrease in students, even though you're probably, you're looking and saying, what do you mean we're down 75? Since the year 2013. Okay, so when I do this again next year, we should see this flip back up. Okay, but we'll see what happens. And you'll see that that's been true for most towns. Collectively, the district has lost 1,678 students since 2013. And that's primarily people having smaller families.
And this slide shows the statement of assessments. So all our 10 districts are located along the left-hand column. The minimum contributions are there. The assessment above minimum are 0 for our 10 towns. It shows the foundation enrollment, the ratio for each one of our towns, and highlighted is Rutland. So a minimum contribution, $496,565, foundation enrollment of 57 students, which equates to 4.63%. So we use that 4.63 to the total transportation assessment of $143,707. Rutland's share is $6,649. Capital population is used to calculate the percentage of the debt service and capital improvement. Rutland has 4.48% times the $153,503. Oh, yeah, $1,553,503. It's been a long day. The share is
I'll teach you to go first next
I
year,
know,
won't it?
very well. $147,228 for a total assessment of $650,442.
We would have if we didn't have to be somewhere else first. And here it is in a much easier to read format.
Just for the town of Rutland on that. So again, FY '24 is $650,442. FY '23 was $751,553. So a decrease of $101,111, or negative 13.45%. Any questions?
Okay.
Since I was warmed up on the last one, I'd like to.
I'm to your left, so behave.
Yes. I'd like to start right off on you guys. First off, I'm actually glad you guys went second, because this is a breath of fresh air. You guys have this down pat. You guys run an excellent school district. I know a bunch of your students. You guys should be proud of what you do. And thank you very much. And we get a great bang for a buck. I'm a trades guy that went to college after trade school. I think that what you guys do is great, and you're a breath of fresh air, and I'm sorry you had to stick around for that last show, but you guys have done everything above and beyond. Anytime we have any questions, you guys do. Over the years, anything anybody's asked, so all I can say is thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the compliments.
You deserve them.
No other questions? We made him drive all the way out here, no one's gonna ask any questions.
I think they appreciate that.
We do.
Hey, they'll take compliments, anyway.
In the complete package that was mailed, there is also a line item budget. So if anyone wanted to look at that, that is available. But where we're at minimum spending, while it might be interesting, it doesn't really matter. But we're happy to answer questions about it if anyone has them.
It does. We are fortunate, and we are looking forward to adding the resources, as you said, for social emotional support. And it's student-facing, it's not administrative-driven on that, to dive deep into the data and see some increases.
And it does create more work primarily for our SPED director, Nancy Alpine. A little bit for me, but mostly for her, because one of the things that's required of the SOA is reporting on it. So we have to show DESE that we are using the money the way that they intended. So we're going to be able to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See, I didn't even need any more power.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a safe ride home, everybody.
Hope you make it home.
Just a reminder, the Hilltop Restaurant is open for business
They better bring more
Tuesdays
than
through
that.
Fridays.
Oh.
So please do come down sometime and taste what our culinary students produce. I have to tell you, it's fantastic. I take it home a lot of nights for dinner. And the salon is open as well.
Okay.
And you can get automotive work done and all kinds of good stuff. So I'm plugging the school like I
Is
always do.
there a certain day that the restaurant is open, or every day?
Usually Tuesdays through Fridays, but always check the website. Okay, because there's days, like, for example, next week, there's a day when something's going on where I think they might not be open.
Do the students still work on projects, like if the town has projects and things?
Yes, Yeah, if you ever wanted to hear more about that, let us know. But we were taught from our predecessors, John and Dean, that for the most part, you just want to know how much money you have to give us every year. So we don't come in and do a whole dog and pony show with our goals are this and we do that. But if you ever had a question, we'd be glad to find it. We do submit a annual report every year. Dean does. I'm sorry, Kyle does. And he does focus on that in that report.
Okay.
So he'll list the things that have been done. But yeah, we'll do work on town halls or other nonprofits.
Oh, great. Thank
So
you very much.
if you know your town needs
We
something,
we
reach
have a
out
lot
to
of-
us
We
and
have a lot of
ask.
needs. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fix Wachusett. Did I do that slip out?
You guys want to come to the table?
Come down here. I
No,
don't want to
we
scream.
don't want
Get your butt over here so I don't have to scream, please.
We don't want Karen to scream.
I thought she was already.
I talk loudly anyway.
She's enthusiastic.
Yes, boss, what can we do for you down this end of the table?
Okay, do we want to have a conversation about the budget tonight? Because I have gone through and I have gotten us to the point where I have suggestions where we would be balanced.
Did you send that out?
Well, we're within 300, we're within 200 and $250,000, right?
No, I got it down so that we're clear.
Balanced. Good.
Yep.
We're done.
Except for the unemployment. I can't fix the unemployment.
Well, but the unemployment is 300,000, right?
No idea what the hell this is.
It might have changed a little bit now because we're not getting rid of 2 departments, but
Okay, so the the unbalanced nature is now attributed to unemployment.
that's not even on here. We never even put it here.
I can't
We
hear.
didn't
Well,
even-
no, but
Right, that 300,000, whatever it's
Right.
gonna be, isn't included in this.
okay, so we're at a point where basically we are balanced.
If I may, through the chair.
I have some suggestions.
If I may,
I'm-
through the chair, can I
No,
share a statement? Excuse me?
no.
If I may, through the chair of the Board of Selectmen?
It's a finance committee meeting.
Well, we're both open.
Yeah, it's both open.
I think it's only fair that we allow it.
No, I was going to
Okay.
relax.
Thank
He
you.
knows that.
Oh, I was going to say no.
You were
Said
going to say no.
I'm gonna yell at him.
Thank you, and thank you all for your patience here. So I'm just going to give you a little recap and tell you where I feel we are. Now, prior to last week's meeting, I was asked by the committee for a balanced budget. That turned out to be worst-case balanced budget. I gave you that. I also advised the committee that I was in the process of putting together an alternative balanced budget, as everyone was aware that the last thing I wanted to present was a closing of 2 important and needed facilities. They both serve the community well, and the support they give the residents as well as our departments is more than mentionable. My alternative budget is to propose to have COA and library remain open, staffed as they were in FY '23. This would mean our budget deficit would be $390,861.24. Currently, there is a balance of $1.168 million in stabilization, and my proposal would be to take the current deficit out of this, which would leave a balance of $777,138.76. Keeping those 2 departments open would reduce the amount needed from stabilization for unemployment from $300,000 to approximately $150,000, as we would still be losing personnel from both fire and police. Please note that due to the approved school budget, our balanced budget would still require a reduction in our public safety staffing. Once the additional amount was taken out of stabilization, that would leave a balance of $627,138.76. If we were to close the 2 departments using our revenue number, it would mean a deficit of $68,542.46. I apologize for reading all these numbers. That would leave us a balance in stabilization of $1,099,457.54, of which $300,000 for unemployment would come out, leaving a balance of $799,457.54.
Reducing the staffing in public safety, nor the closing of town buildings is the way to go. Rutland needs better. We need to get the word out of an override and how important it is to the residents and the successful operation of Rutland. We have started the process of informing the public, and I've asked department heads to put together a 5-minute video to help explain the impacts and what we would lose if the override is not accepted and approved. The amount of the override last week was recommended by me, and I think you and I talked about this, Alex, to be $2.5 million because we have some contracts to settle, which would increase the average tax to about $774 per year. With the new numbers presented, my recommendation would be an override of $2 million, which would increase the average tax to about $514 a year or $128 per quarter, a little over $1 a day. This would allow us to pass a needs-based budget and put us where we should be. As a final note, other than bringing all budgets back to the amounts as approved in FY23, I have asked for reductions of the following amounts. Police Department, $300,000, Fire Department, $270,000, and the DPW, $299,000, which after a painful process they did submit to me. We can't let this happen, and I ask for your support as well as the support of the Rutland residents to approve a $2 million override. Thank you.
Good job.
Well, thank you, sir. It's not, it has not been easy. I mean, the support of the staff, the support of the treasurer's office, Tamika, obviously all the departments. This was a painstaking process. This is, I think Leah said it best a couple of meetings ago, that we just keep constantly putting Band-Aids on the fix. And we need a permanent fix, and we all know that. And we have to get where we're supposed to be, so.
And the department heads did a good job.
They did. They did a very good job. They've worked well together. They've worked well with me. All I can ask is that we're all part of the same team, which I know we have been, and to get this job done and get us rolling again, so.
So Gary, when you originally talked about the 2.5 million and then went to the 2 million, what was the 0.5 going to make a difference? Because you said originally you had proposed a 2.5.
Originally it was like a 1.9 million deficit, but we had to add 150,000. Let's subtract that off of the, put it into the revenues, I'm sorry, because we were able to use that to help balance the budget. So that actually upped the revenues.
Okay.
Which reduced the amount that we would need.
That was free cash.
So it was the revenues that made the difference.
And I went back through everything and made sure that everybody was back to FY23 standards.
Okay.
And I believe last week, we were kind of going between 2 million and 3 million, and I think we just kind of said, well, what about 2.5?
Yeah.
So I think that's where the 2.5 number
But we were close to that. We also, you have two union contracts to be settled, plus an agreement contract with the.
I think honestly it was 2 million, and then there was about 5 or 6 things that you kind of brought up off the top of your head, which means that there's obviously more that we need, right? So like I think we knew that there was other things that we could easily make reasoning for to get the 500K up to the 500K. So I mean, there's still more needs, even if we get a $2 million override. I think there's still plenty of need for the town. So, you know, going whether it's 2.5, whatever the number is, I think it's all going to be.
So this 2 million includes the things we had talked about in the PA's budget for the additional.
Correct. That's a needs-based budget with the extra positions. Yes, and not the reduction, obviously, in staffing of public safety.
Right.
Extra hours for some departments, extra staffing in some departments. COA, which certainly needs extra hours, we know that, so.
I don't want to talk about that.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll tell Pete. Jeremy, Pete.
So, I have some suggestions. Does anyone else have any suggestions for the budget?
I have a question.
Sure.
This spreadsheet that I have here in front of me, if we don't pass the override, we get the balanced budget with cuts column, correct?
Yeah, all the cuts were in that column, and actually, I don't know which copy you're looking at, Ted, but two of them would be the closing of 2 departments, if you will. And all the additional staffing or whatever would be also out of that.
No, those departments are in here.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think they're.
Your new one has those departments back in it.
There's 2 that you should have. One is without the departments, one is with.
Yeah, that was
The
last
68,000 is with, the 390 is without.
That was last week's budget.
That was the
and
one
this
that I shot off today, because the numbers change every day. And I apologize for that, but I feel I'm not doing my job if I don't get you guys the new numbers as I get them.
Right.
I'm not gonna try to hold it back. We'll get the meeting and say, well, what about this number? So I send them off, I do it, we work on it every day, and just try to get out whatever we can.
That wasn't my whole question. The library and the council on aging are put back in by using stabilization.
Correct.
Correct? Now, the needs-based budget, is that the department request or the TA request column?
That would be both. The initial
Are these pretty similar?
Pretty similar.
Okay.
Initial department request and followed up with the TA.
Thank you.
Any suggestions, Karen?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Your balanced budget has town network is going up significantly. Is that a contract that we have with them?
That's a contract, and some of that's to do with cybersecurity that we have to purchase.
Okay, so that's a contract that we have with them. That's all I need to know. As long as it's a contract that I know, then we're good.
So not all of it is specifically a contract. So
Okay.
CM Geeks, their rate, their fee is not going up in FY24. That is staying the same. However, our insurance company in FY24 is requiring us to have certain levels of cybersecurity. So I worked with Paul to calculate through the company that he uses what that cost is going to be per employee and per machine. And so we've calculated that to a very specific number, and I have the breakdown in your budget binders in my narrative of exactly where that comes
And
from.
what company is that
But
you
we
use?
can't. He's the one that is contracting it. I don't know the name of it. It all goes through CM Geeks.
Okay.
But it is detailed in there, but that line item cannot be cut.
So that's the thing. So although it's not all just IT services, it's some cybersecurity, but it's all contracted.
Right,
So we're,
and it's required now.
and that's all that I needed to know.
Yes.
Because that was the only thing I had. Okay.
Can I ask one question?
Yep.
So do we have a cyber liability policy, insurance policy as well?
Okay. So, the unpopular, that everyone will hate me for, but first and foremost, the levy sheet has to change because when we passed the town administrator and Becky's warrant article on the special town meeting to give raises and steps, it was stated to us that if we did it, we couldn't find funding in 2024, we could use ARPA funds. We're there, we're using ARPA funds. So that would be adding $43,878 in ARPA funds to the total levy sheet.
If the override didn't pass.
If the override doesn't pass, right. This is
Right.
worst case scenario.
Can you repeat that number one more time?
$43,878. And that's so that we don't have to go back and take away raises that we gave them in January.
How much is left in ARPA?
Excuse me?
How much is left in the ARPA?
Roughly 838,000.
Yeah, 838.
Yeah, plus or minus.
I would want to get clarification from Seth and for the usage of ARPA funds. I don't know that they can be used for recurring expenses.
We asked that question back when we did the special town meeting, and it was said that we could use ARPA funds.
I think we need to get clarification on that.
Okay. That would be a problem. So we don't want that changed. Okay. So first and foremost is taking out all the non-union COLAs and step increases. Bring them back to their wages as of January 1st. Listen, we don't have a choice here. If we're going to try to make this work without an override, which we have to have an iteration of the budget, we have to take horrible cuts. unfortunately.
However, I
That's
believe that the step of that was not to put them back to last year's levels, but not to increase what was proposed for FY '24 levels.
That's what I'm doing. I'm taking
You
as
said
of
go back to FY January
the
1st, FY
January of 2023, which is including the special town meeting
Okay.
increases.
Okay.
I did not go back.
As
to
I've stated to you before, and you know how I
Yep.
feel about this.
And
because
I
to
don't
me-
do this lightly.
I know.
I have spent a lot of time with
Okay.
these
Okay, excuse me.
numbers.
Oh, excuse me, Sherry, 1 minute. To me, and I think to everybody in this room, those wages that we're talking about with unaffiliated personnel, these people have earned this. They've
Yep.
earned their keep. To me, that is just as important as a contractual obligation. I've said this to you before.
I agree.
Can I add something to that that was never explained? Why was only half of that matrix done? Even to bring it up to minimum wage, like the first row, the OAD one could have been done. None of us realized that the MTP was never touched.
I
So
don't
all
know
of
anybody
those
wouldn't
people.
realize that, Nancy, because that was very well spread out and handouts were given. And that was.
Where was the thought
The
process?
thought
there?
process was, we had to bring up the OAD due to the increase in cost of living.
The whole entire chart has to
We
be
had
brought up?
to. If we didn't, step one would have been getting paid more than step two. We had to adjust every step. Yes, that's just the way it is. It's the way it is. We went through it.
From what you just said about being fair, a lot of us on that other side don't see that fairness, and we didn't realize it because it was brought forth with confidence. It was so tiny, and we thought everybody was getting, because there was talk over years about the non-union not getting their pay. And you know what I mean? Because it's just going to snowball.
We did for
Somebody's
years
gonna look
because
at
they
that.
didn't get their pay, but
What?
MTPs were always given their steps.
No, they weren't. I didn't get a step in 9 years. They
But we
were
gave
not
it, okay, and I tried to make up that difference when it came to
All right,
being.
I just want to know what the thought process was, because I don't think it was done fairly. But anyways, I just wanted to put that on the table.
Okay. So, that's the first thing. Second thing is the town administrator budget would have to take a hit of $17,333.99. Treasurer and collector would take a hit of.
Where's you gonna take that out of?
Yeah,
That's them to do.
department heads.
Yeah, but you have something in mind.
Is it a percentage?
I calculated it based upon, support staff half-time.
Yeah, Darren, you're the one that said you don't want to be able to be micromanaging.
That's how I
the-
calculated it.
the
is-
department.
I just wanna know how she come up with $17,000. I don't care where she take it,
Yeah.
but that number just didn't come out of.
No, I calculated it as
That's all.
It's a
half,
calculation.
half-time of support staff.
Right. So it's a calculation.
Treasurer and collector would be $26,945.50. Town clerk would be $16,333. Board of Health would be $11,829.57. Council on Aging would be $7,727.33. Library would be $31,940.67. And inspectional services would be $10,332. I don't know if anyone paid attention, but the reserve fund was cut in half in the balance, in Gary's budget. It needed to happen, and I understand that. All I'm saying is that we are budgeting tight.
Right.
Because that would have already been spent, like, by next week.
I'm really confused as to those numbers you just read off are coming from. I just don't.
I calculated them as half-time of support staff. I'm not saying that's where it has to come from. That's what I calculated it as.
At half-time of existing support staff?
Yep.
She's coming up with a number. She's coming up with she's using information to advise what the reduction should be.
I'm just suggesting these. I'm not saying they
Right.
have to happen. I'm
But-
suggesting these cuts.
And then the department head would take that number, that suggestion, and decide where it comes from.
Besides, above and beyond the number that we've already given?
Correct. Right?
Most of the other departments haven't taken a hit.
Most of the other departments took a hit by going back by going back to the FY twenty-three supplies and services line items.
Okay,
All of them.
right, but that didn't get us to a balanced budget
I presented two balanced budgets without.
with
the-
using stabilization.
Yes, but without any of the increases you just mentioned.
Mhm.
Two balanced budgets. And not touching free cash for those balanced budgets. Just stabilization. Stabilization, to me, correct me if I'm wrong, is a rainy day fund. We need it. It's time.
Yeah, but there's a difference between operating expenses and one-time expenses. We're supporting
There are.
ongoing operating expenses with money that should be used for one time. You know, it's not gonna be there next year. That's the problem.
It's a quick Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Sure, but so is cutting everything back. I mean, there's no.
No, cutting everything back is a change in trend. If you cut back supplies, now you've just got a new trend line, right? If you use the stabilization fund to fund that, you've said, I'm going to use it this year, and I don't know where I'm going to get the money next year, or when the stabilization fund runs out.
I'm not saying we're not gonna use one of the iterations that Gary did,
You're coming up with another option.
but we have to have several iterations because the voting public might not decide to touch stabilization, because we fought a lot, I know, we fought for a long time to keep the stabilization.
I think the voting public, I honestly think the voting public will decide that it's about time that we brought the town into this century.
I'm
Boy, I would
I think
like
I'm
we all
all
hope
for-
that's what happens.
exactly, but
I
I'm
don't think anyone's
hoping
against
that, but we have to have all these, because otherwise, what do we do when it doesn't go? We have to just go, okay, well, we'll have to do another budget later. We have to have them ready to go.
If it doesn't go, honestly, if it doesn't go, and I hate to be so candid, but if it doesn't go, you're flushing the toilet the last time.
I understand that.
Yeah, but
That's how strongly we feel about this, that the town has to give itself what it needs. These budgets, these balanced budgets, the override, I should say, is for the security and the well-being of the residents of the town of Rutland and the operations.
I agree.
But the other side of that is we're gonna ask them to pay more money, and some of them can't afford that.
You're correct, Peter, because we've discussed that, and Rebecca has said there's available programs for relief, for assistance for that. This just has to be applied for.
So, and that, we should know what that means. If we're talking $750 or $500 a year, whatever the numbers are, are there enough people that would qualify for that kind of mitigation that would get us back into a situation where somebody wouldn't have to worry about it?
Is there a cap on it? Is that what you mean? A cap
No,
on how much
I
can
guess
be
what I'm
applied
saying
for?
is there any way to assess, we're saying $500 per
Annual, or $128 a quarter,
per
dollar a
household,
day,
if you
dollar and a quarter a day.
And if you're going to take that money and say, well, there's a program out there that will allow a person who can't afford it to be able to not pay as much, or maybe not pay any of that, and they just apply for the program, how much money is that going to be, and is that really going to do us any benefit?
Do we know that, Rebecca?
So, I mean, I have the guidelines that the assessor's office gave to me, like, if you're asking like for an elderly exemption, the potential exemption amount is $1,000. A single person, the income maximum is $24,718. For married persons, it's $36,000. They have to have assets maximum of $49,000, and so I can provide all this information.
But
to you,
that's the qualification to apply.
Right, they have to have a certain
Right.
income, they have to be 65 or older, they have to be within a certain income level and a certain, have certain
I
assets.
don't think we're ever going to know that number. So Peter's asking, we're asking for $2 million, but because there's numerous people that will qualify to have that lessened, we won't actually reach that $2 million.
Correct.
It's going to be a lesser number.
Correct.
And is that going to be good enough to get us where we need to be?
There is built into the tax levy, that allowance for abatements and exemptions of $105,000, if you saw that.
What is
in there.
that?
That's-
So those levies and abatements, so do we actually get that money? Does it come from?
That's reducing our income based on, for all of these exemptions and that type of stuff.
Sure, but if we
get,
increase
don't.
the bottom line, if we increase the tax rate, right, theoretically, there could be more people that are going for that abatement. So that number
Right.
may not be enough anymore, right?
Right.
And we don't know what that kind of liability might be.
I don't think we've come close to that $100,000. So in years past. So I think
So that's a
it's
conservative
more.
number,
Yeah,
you're saying?
it is. It is.
But
I can confirm
we've also
that with the
haven't done an
assessors.
override in X number of years, so
Right.
we have no idea what sort of potential there is for people to struggle, which,
Right.
you know, from our last meeting, it sounded like there could be a lot. So that number has, like, if we do put in a $2 million override, we should probably put a larger number into that, abatement to
Yeah.
conservatively budget our top line number.
I can confirm that with the assessor's office and just see what.
Because that would also, I
that's
mean, if
enough.
we could kind of figure out that number would be, that would also help us to identify what the actual override amount we need is.
It's a risk, you know, it's
Yeah,
just
it's a risk.
assessing a risk.
It's a liability, yeah.
Right.
Not a risk, it's a risk.
Wait,
Can I ask
I don't
a
know if I
question?
can.
Does anybody in this room know by how much the override failed? So if we were able to sway a certain percentage over, would it be enough, or are we looking for a huge amount of people to, like, do we know if it failed by a lot?
Didn't
or-
somebody say there's only like 700 people that vote on average? I think I heard that number. So I would have to imagine that we're not talking big numbers.
Is it 2/3 majority, or is it majority of 2/3?
I don't know the answer to that. We'd have to ask the
I
clerk
don't
on
know.
that one.
Peter,
Town clerk.
come into the room.
The override doesn't need a certain percentage, it's just a
Majority, I
majority.
believe.
It's a
Majority,
ballot
majority vote.
question.
But do you know if we failed by a lot, or was it close enough? so if we-
Wasn't close.
There was not support for it on, so I think it failed by a decent amount, but I don't know off the top of my head. But there was vocal opposition for it, so that doesn't help when there's such.
The select board said they didn't need it the last time we ran it.
Has anyone heard vocal opposition from the community
Yes.
in this room?
I am.
Yeah. And the last time we went for an override, they actually put up signs all through the center of town saying, vote no to the override.
And I will say that there's a core population that, because of Prop 2.5 exists, will just always be no on an override because it's the precedent that the state set that the towns should be able to live within their means but not hold any of the contributing factors to a town's budget to the 2.5. So I think that there's, just because it exists, it's going to be a no. There's a certain population there, not beyond that.
And they obviously don't understand the school's not bound to that, so they're
Right.
well over the 2.5, and they're the ones, that's why we're always underwater,
Upside down.
because they're above that.
But, and it's also, I mean, wages, health insurance, like, there's a lot of, now with utilities and everything, there's a lot that, everything that makes up the town budget is not held to a 2.5, but the town budget is held to a 2.5. So,
And the downside is the people are affected, the townspeople are affected by the same increases.
right.
So what we're saying is you're gonna pay more for your electricity, more for your gas, more for your oil, and more for your taxes. And that becomes a problem.
But they could understand that the town is paying all those more for all that too, so
Well,
we're all on
and-
the same line.
But again, Dan, where is it? His money.
I know.
You know, it's his money, and that's what they're reacting to.
And I would say, I mean, if I may, I think that this community has come to expect a high level of services.
Yes.
And we see that now playing out with the cuts that were made last year with DPW, that there's so much vocal dismay with things that are happening, not because of DPW, but because of the funding situation.
Right.
And so I think that, Tom said in our meeting the other night about the town needs to come to terms with what we want and what we can afford. And if we aren't willing to fund what we want, then we don't have what we want. And now I think, to Gary's point, the cuts that we're looking at have been detrimental over the course of years. And now it's getting to a critical point that as a town of 10,000 and different things trigger at the state level because we're no longer considered a small town and we have additional commitments and everything, we're actually increasing our liability because we're not adequately funding our.
And Lee, that's all true. Every word that you said is true. But when that person
I know.
gets the tax bill, they're going to be reacting that way, and they're going to go into the town hall meeting and say, I can't do that. And how many people are going to be doing that? I mean, I would like to think that it's the people that really can't afford it are going to say, no, I can't. But the people that can afford it, you know, I'm putting myself in that category, and going to sit down and say, she's right, we need to go ahead and do this. It's time. It's time to go forward and fund this stuff and get this thing done.
But that's where the education comes in.
Exactly.
And the education and in the vocal support for it that it's needed and that it's beyond time.
Right.
But and that was my point a couple meetings ago also was I would rather see a budget that's going to get us to our closer or at our true needs budget than just an override to put another Band-Aid on it and then be in the same place next year where we're making cuts and right. It's demoralizing to our staff every year to go through the COLAs are getting slashed, steps are getting slashed. We think we're trying to make progress, but we're not. The conversations about this department or this department's closing or whatever. It's
right.
and that's a function of what needs to happen, and I understand that. But I'm saying that I think we need to make that advocacy a piece.
Well, and I think the reality of the situation is we need to go forward with it. We need to make our case. I mean, Gary's right. Everybody deserves what they're asking for at this point.
I don't think anybody here doesn't think we need to do an override. I think
Right.
we're all on the same page.
But we need to put it out there and just get it done. Go out there, get all the information out there. Let folks know that there is going to be an override. They're going to be coming to the meetings and they're going to be going to the polls to be able to vote for, I don't want to say stabilization, but to vote for what they are asking for.
Sustainability, really.
Sustainability, yes. And you know, there are a lot of people who don't come to the polls.
Yeah,
You know,
that's the.
And they're probably working or whatever they're doing or whatever the response is as to why they don't. But the fact of the matter is they need to get out and vote. And that needs to happen. And if that is a large number of people and the override fails, then it's a philosophy of the town, and that's okay. Well, at least we'll understand what it is. Maybe they don't want it. Maybe everybody doesn't want everything that they're asking for. But if it passes, then at least we'll know. Okay, I'm done.
Can anybody answer this question? There's some people in here that are smarter than me, Alex. Is this what we put down if we go for 2 million, 2.5, 3, whatever the number we end up settling on? I'm going to be John Q. Public at the town meeting floor. How long is that good for? Can anybody? No. Are you coming back next year asking for the same thing, Peter?
Well, so if we ask for an override, it changes the levy, right?
Yes, but will we be back to the taxpayer? I'm standing up now, and I'm gonna say, are you gonna come back next year for another override of $2 million because you can't do it?
And I would say if they don't increase the insurance, if they don't increase the electricity, if there's no increases, nobody asks for any increase in rate, no, we won't be back. We're gonna be using the same money. But the reality is that there's always going to be that increase that occurs. Life goes on.
Well, all right, so I didn't like your answer because I'm the taxpayer.
Yeah.
So when are you coming back to me again? 1 year, 5 years, whatever? Because they're gonna ask, someone is gonna ask us on the town meeting floor, how often is this gonna reoccur? Well, I guess I'd like to know myself as a taxpayer.
Right.
But I wanna know, do we have to have a plan somehow, and I don't know how this works, but someone in this room has to be smart enough to tell me that this is good for a couple of years at the way we're going right now.
So if we had...
Because if it's only $2 million,
yeah,
that's one thing. If it's 2.5, that's another thing. What I don't want to do is come back and ask for another piece of the pie next year.
Yeah.
I will fight the fight here to get this, but I just someone's gonna ask me, you're gonna come back next year, and I don't know the answer to that. We need an answer to that.
Right, so the answer there is that there should be a process for forecasting. There should be a process that where we sit down and say, we expect expenses to run at this rate and revenues to run at this rate. And we're going to be plus or minus our need for an override based upon what those projections are. And go out 5 years. And then I'd be able to tell you, we don't have any of that. What we have is a budget for this next year. And that's it.
Well, I think we have to have the answer, if we could, somehow maybe at the end of the budget, just come up with a number that we add it and go out 5 years and see how long this is gonna last.
I don't.
Go out 3 years.
Yeah,
You go out 3 years. 3 years is a very typical business forecast.
Okay.
And it is not difficult to do. You can take the numbers that we're projecting for this next year and you can put in certain percentages that are general increases that we all kind of expect and know is gonna happen. The problem is, and we all know it is the unexpected. And there's always unexpected, especially in an inflation-driven economy.
Yeah.
There's a word there, I can't think of it. I'm apparently not smarter than
The only thing we know of that's coming in
We
the
don't
next
know.
few years is with the height sales.
Right.
Well, but we know that.
Is expected to be 900,000.
Well, but see, that's part of the forecast. You're going to add 140 units over there, 142 units, and they're all going to be worth a certain amount of dollars of value on the market. The people are going to buy them, and it's going to generate income. Yes, it is. But at the same token, it's going to generate more expenses because there's going to be police requirement up there, fire support up there. So there's a whole series of things. I mean, the government does it all the time for Social Security and their budgets. They forecast out for years, for a period of time anyway. And we should be able to do the same thing. The town isn't set up to do that right now. We don't have, we would need a staff. We would need an Alex to be able to go in there and sit down and
You get a lot of confidence today.
With his money.
right, you're playing with his money, but have that person there that could confidently say, this is where we think we're going, and then that would answer your question.
Well, my question is, Honorable Skip down there is gonna be around town, and he gets a lot of people my age and a little older, his age,
Right.
and they're gonna say, hey, Skip, how long is this good for?
Right.
And I wanna give Skip the information, because he's an important person in the direction of this town that we know. And my only charge to this group is that we should be able to try our best to forecast where we're gonna be, and if Alex says 3 years or whatever, because I would like to be able to confidently say, we're not gonna need to, under normal circumstances, we should be good for 3 years. And maybe Alex knows a way to do it, and we can work with Gary to do it, or whatever, but I don't know if Karen agrees with me, but I don't wanna go up there and not.
100% agree with you.
We just, tell me what the number is, and then tell me how long it's good for.
Okay.
Well, just tell me what the Wachusett school budget's gonna be.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good question.
And then we'll know what we'll need next year. So tell me what their increase is gonna be next year. I agree that we need to have some leverage in our levy.
Whatever percent of our budget.
Right.
Is something that we have.
But we also need to explain to people what we're doing with that money. We're saying, well, the school budget might come. I mean, I understand we do need to plan ahead, but we also need to be balancing this.
$16 million, and they didn't go to the high school yet.
Right.
Scares me.
Right.
And they told us they're gonna need to build new schools.
But that's how we got here, because we can't anticipate what they're gonna hit us with.
But there's never
this
been there's never been a conversation with the schools as to include them into the conversation as far as, okay, we seriously, as a town, need to go for an override. And the school budget is between 50 and 60% of our total budget.
Right.
So we go and throw out a number, but we don't even talk to. Tonight was the most information we've gotten in years, as far as what the potential plans are in the coming years.
But like they said, they've never done a strategic plan.
Right,
No.
exactly.
We have asked.
But we have had meetings
We
with the
have
school,
asked
like
them.
all the
We've
districts.
had round table
Right,
discussions.
and we said we're gonna
asking
limit
for
it, so you
5
need to,
years
we
and-
told them to stick to a certain
Mhm.
percent.
And they didn't.
And they
And they
didn't.
didn't. they
So-
didn't do strategic planning. These guys
Right.
seem like they're
Right.
going to do it. So we've got a shot, but that won't be until next year.
But my
Right.
point is that we've been cutting for years and years, and this is gonna at least bring us up to be solid and be able to function. And if we have to cut back here, once, we know we've done it before, we don't wanna go backwards. The problem is that we've done everything, we've done more with less. So people expect more with less.
Correct.
And more with less and less and less. So we're gonna have to, we said, okay, the 4th of July funds itself. Well, if Joe's not cutting up the grass and maintaining the fields then we shouldn't have functions like that. We need to stop celebrating what we can't afford. If the DPW can't cut the grass, they can't open the pool.
Right.
They can't set up a hockey rink. They can't do all these extras. So we need to tell people, unfortunately, what we're known for, we can't continue to do because we're at our total limit of cutting these departments.
We're not getting more for less anymore. We're getting less for what we're paying.
So like the party's over, and we don't want to say that, and I don't want to be the one that kills it, but why are we going to be doing all those functions and entertaining not only our community but every other community in the area when we're not even paying our people and we can't cut our grass?
How many people?
I understand 100%. Just tell me how long it's good for.
1 year.
Well, I feel like this
So you're
is-
gonna come back and hit me with another override for
No,
$2 million
no.
next year?
No, what I'm telling you is, we're going to do this again next year, we're gonna find out where we are, and if we're within the range of the revenue that we projected, and based upon the rates that we have, we're not gonna do anything.
You
We
wanna
just-
see a slaughter? Tell them you only going for a year.
Well, but,
It won't pass.
That's-
Guaranteeing you for a year, he's not saying he's only going for a year, he's guaranteeing you 1 year.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's gonna be it'll be a bloodbath.
Yeah,
So
but
we gotta figure out, well, maybe we're going with Peter, maybe it's 2.5 million. I don't know what the number is, but we gotta,
Yeah, but even with 2.5, you can't guarantee you're not gonna come back next year. You could go for 5, and as Lyndon's saying, what's the school gonna do?
Well, we can get really close.
Right. But if we're saying we're going to balance the budget at 2, then they want to know where that other 0.5 is going.
Right.
And that's it, so, oh, just in case.
Yeah.
Which we can do that, because then we can increase it and we can say we're not going to use it.
Right.
But,
Just have to stick
well,
to that.
but are you going to buy that?
Yeah.
Like, once you have that money, I'm sorry, there's
I
not
don't buy
trust,
that.
so it's harder to sell it
Yeah.
to say, oh, no, we're not going to use it.
The bigger question, Darren, is where are you gonna be if it doesn't pass?
Right, that's,
That's the bigger question.
And that's maybe what we say to people. If it doesn't pass,
Well,
where are we gonna be?
I think we all know that, but
That's what I was trying to go through.
How do you answer the question though? Because what I hear is they say that every year, and they always find
Well,
the
that's what
money.
I'm saying, we've been doing
Well,
more for less
so-
all along.
Lou, there was a guy who stopped at the town meeting, I forget his name.
Mr. Canacchioli.
Yeah, thank you very much. And what he said, and what he said, I just don't listen, names are not registered. And he said, listen, the steps, we should give it to them because they're gonna figure it out. The town is gonna find the money someplace and they'll be fine with it. Just go ahead and vote for it, pay them, and everything is gonna be fine. And that's the impression they have. That there's money, in people's pockets falling out all over the place, and we don't need to really be able to do anything spectacular because it's there already. It's an overall issue. I think the voting public is starting to see some of the reductions. Joe is being very good in some of the stuff that he can and can't do. We haven't cut back on the ambulance service yet, but that's coming.
It's in the offing.
Yeah.
well, and I think, however you wanna perceive it, I think that the town administrator threw off a pretty couple good hand grenades about the library and the council on aging, and that may have woken a few people up.
So that was our discussion last week about that. It was the first time that came up. Have you heard anybody say anything about that?
Oh, I've seen it online. Oh, yeah.
I've been getting some unkind messages through the website about it. I think with some people it's not being received the way that we thought it was going to be received, where it was kind of like a wake-up call, like, oh my gosh, like, we really have to pay attention. It was more of, what is the town's problem? You are awful people.
Well, okay.
And
And
we
I-
are.
and
But,
I-
but
and I
what
think
are we
that's-
gonna do if you don't give us money?
Right.
We're gonna be awful people.
So no. They're gonna be awful people, because they're the one making the choice, not us. We're not making the
Well,
choice.
I guess the group is gonna be.
But that kind of thing is something that we should be publicizing. Do you know that your fellow citizens are really upset with the fact that we may have to close the library and close the COA?
I don't know, I feel like it could go either way.
Well, it
I
could,
feel like
but
it could get really nasty, and I feel like it could defeat what we're trying to do, where I think it could rally people in a negative way against the town, instead of saying we want to help the town out and give them money. Because what I'm hearing in the community is people saying the town does this every year, they never have enough money, yet somehow they figure it out every year.
Right.
We've balanced the budget with $400,000 in free cash. At the end of the day, the cuts that we've put forward have not happened in such a way that people are noticing it enough. And I think that we've kind of become the boy who's cried wolf for too many years. And I know that we keep saying we have to get the word out, we have to get the word out, but we haven't yet come up with a solid plan of how we're going to move forward with that expeditiously, because we're running out of time, and I don't think that only targeting the seniors can be our only method in this case.
I don't disagree with any of that, but
I think our biggest demographic is the ones who are not voting. Those are
Absolutely.
the folks, and the majority of folks that are showing up to the town meeting are not the people that are going to show up at the polls.
Right.
And I think we also should be promoting that we have mail-in voting now, so that it helps to eliminate that issue for people who are working and can't make it to the polls.
So
we need
that-
to put that out there.
that's an excellent point. That's going to be part of the process, is that we're not only going to figure out a way to be able to educate what's going on and what they need to do, but we give them the tool to be able to say, yes, I agree. I don't have the time to drive down there on a Tuesday morning to be able to go to the polls, go to the library, but I'll send in my ballot and give them the opportunity, or early voting, vote on a Saturday. I don't know I don't think we can do that with that.
I don't think we're doing early voting,
No.
but I know that for past elections, especially during COVID, there was a very big push about mail-in voting, and we had it on the website, and we really put it out to people. And as far as right now, I haven't heard anything about mail-in voting. I only know just from my conversations, with Anita.
Well,
so
so-
I think that's something we need. That's one step we need to take. is
How
we need to get that
long
out
would it
there.
take for us to produce ballots that could be mailed in?
I think you have to do it by
That
law.
we're required,
Well,
so
yeah,
that's already done.
That's already set.
It's already
That's
done.
already being done.
Okay.
Because it's required.
So that we're going to get enough ballots for everybody in town.
I can't speak to that. I don't know exactly how the process
No,
works
you
behind
get
the
a
scenes.
letter in the mail.
Right, and you
say,
sign up
I
for
want
it.
to
Say, I
vote
want a mail-in
by
ballot.
mail,
Yeah.
and then they send you a ballot when it becomes time.
Okay.
Correct.
So now we're putting it back on Joe voter that doesn't vote now to get that letter, read it, and then request a ballot. Why can't we just send them?
The cost.
Because then, plus you don't know where they're all going. People can just fill out.
Then Trump is right.
Yeah, it's like you can't just send out
Plus, you have to
All right.
account for every ballot that goes
Right.
out. If you send it and they want to go to the polls anyway, and that was a problem. Some people said, oh, I didn't
Yeah,
think
I
I was
actually
going to be
did
here,
that.
but now I am.
I showed up at the poll, and I voted in person, and then I sent back in the registrar told me, well, take your mail-in ballot and just put it in the mailbox out front, and I did. And then I got a call. What the hell?
Yeah. I think you're at a point where, like, Gary, if you put everything, whatever we put in and say, okay, we'll take care of it out of this fund, is going to create exactly what you said. Oh, see, they found it in free cash, they found it in. So you have to really emphasize the things that are still going to be cut or cut instead of. Because otherwise they're going to think, well, see, they found it again.
So we may have to, the question here is this the year when we really make the cuts?
If we have to, that's what we have to do, yes.
Yeah. So if that's the case, just let them happen. Ambulance services goes away on the weekend.
And then they'll see it. That's the first time that they'll see it.
And then it'll be the last thing they'll see.
Yeah.
Karen's is just another set of options here. I know.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
Wait, but
But it
so
takes
she's
two-thirds
doing,
majority to do a stabilization payment.
she's preparing the math to come up with the numbers that has to happen. That's fine.
Just another, it has,
Another iteration.
It's another
And
iteration.
we need to look at every possible
Yeah.
opportunity, every possible choice. That's our job, 100%.
Right.
Those cuts also should be shared with the department heads, because
And
the
I was just
department heads are
gonna
gonna
say
have to,
that,
like,
yeah.
we need to know
Well,
what
They
they are.
will be,
Yeah.
but I couldn't send them out without getting the finance committee to agree to them first, because it's not me, it's the committee. So I can't share them until,
Yeah, because I know way back when we did that, the finance committee said you have to take this out of that, and I think we've changed
no,
that.
we don't
The
say
department head's
where
gotta-
to take it
department
from, we
head
say
has to decide what they're
this
taking
is
their
where the
cuts out
number
of.
comes from. But that's all I did, was just use it as a
merely a recommendation.
It's just where I got the money. I don't care where they take it from.
Right, it's
I don't
just
care.
an information, it's
But we need to
information
put a
as to
dollar
how the
amount per
budget.
department, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying, not,
Right.
I reduced this one to halftime, and
No.
I did that one to this.
No,
I mean, a
this
dollar
will
amount
be,
per department.
but everyone has to be aware that all steps and COLAs are gone, including the 3 departments that have already taken hits.
Well, so what if they want to decide, I want to leave those there, but I'll take
You
out
can't.
supplies?
You can't. It's
Why?
because you can't give one department a step and a COLA and nobody else gets a COLA. That's just a payroll nightmare. And
Oh, I
you
see.
talk about unfair,
Yeah, that's no longer a
It's unfair
COLA,
to give
that's a
the, to
raise.
give
Yeah,
the
okay.
union employees increases and not the others.
I get it.
It's unfair.
But it's,
Unfortunately, we don't have a choice on those ones.
Okay.
We shouldn't have
I
a
mean,
choice on any of them.
I don't take
That's
this
just-
lightly. This was a very arduous
Well, I
task.
don't care where they take the $28,000 from. If they wanted to, I don't think you should, I don't even know if we should tell them that it's gotta come out of their COLA or step raises. I don't care where it comes from. You figure it out.
Well, Karen is saying that it's not practical to expect that they
So
would take
Becky, do
something
you want
out.
everyone to decide who gets a step raise, who gets a COLA, and what departments don't?
No, it should be across the board,
Right.
or not.
See, it's
across-
a
And that's
process.
like, that was always what we were told, because trying to get that, it's gonna be, you gotta take it all from everyone to make it even. It's just like a union raise goes to everyone regardless of,
So,
whatever.
to your point though, if you don't want to take the COLAs out,
Take it somewhere else.
but everybody's got to do it the same way. Everybody's got to take it out of COLAs, or nobody takes it out of COLAs.
Yeah, but
Isn't
the
that a separate
department
thing?
heads, and this gentleman right here,
Yeah.
can decide if they wanna take the COLAs away,
No,
or
no,
do their own thing. No. Why would we tell them?
Well, we don't want the department heads to be able to make a decision that's going to be an impossible function for her to be able to perform.
well, excuse me, let's just clear this up. In order to get from what my suggestions were, the COLAs and the step increases that were included for fiscal year 2024 are out. If those are going back in,
Right.
I don't have a balanced budget.
No. So we.
She's giving an iteration
Well, you
on
do.
how she got there.
You do.
Let's
I have
let's
it
hear it
agreed,
all out.
but my whole thing is we're doing this by cuts only. Not trying to get a 2/3 majority to agree to take money out of stabilization. You know, there's a lot of that kind of stuff. I'm just trying to give another iteration.
I understand.
Yeah, but then to back up your statement and also to back up Rebecca's statement. I mean,
Took them off the air.
Step raises, it's all or none.
That's exactly right. That's what I
That's
said. I
always
took
good.
them away from everybody.
So may I ask a question? Can there be an iteration where there's no step increases, but there's a COLA? Because
They've done that a lot.
as a non-union employee, it's getting harder and harder to survive in this
Oh, and I
world.
know that, and you know,
And
we
to
fought
take
this
our
battle, I know
2%
that.
COLAs, I think you're gonna lose people. And that's gonna cost us more in the end than the 2% COLA would cost us. So if we can't have a step, can we at least have a COLA?
I would guess
this
that
point.
if a balanced budget like this passes, you're gonna lose people based on the stress of them working in.
Sure, but we're already losing people all the
Right, so
time. That's
I'm
what
gonna
people don't
guess-
understand. No, we're feeling this.
I don't disagree with you, but
Some of the struggles in the operations, it has been turnover.
Yeah.
Turnover over and over again, because we're not treating our people
And
the way
turnover
they should be
costs more
treated.
money.
And
We
it,
do not, yeah, we do something like this,
Turnover
there's nothing
We're-
there for retention, nothing,
in trouble.
nothing.
Well, so we're not doing anything yet. What we're doing is putting out
iterations.
iterations.
I know.
We're saying this is fully funded, this is what you're going to get, and then you don't fully fund it, you're going to lose a lot of stuff. And that difference is something that the voting public will make.
But
Well,
every
and we need-
iteration we've given is bad.
Yes, I understand.
Other than the override. Every
Right.
iteration we've given is bad, and the override is gonna be bad for some folks.
Right, so, those things are okay.
Yes.
But that's why we always did it. We always had, we were always running several budgets because
Oh, yeah.
there were so many different
Yeah.
scenarios.
May I ask a naive question? Has one of the iterations ever been, this is a percentage that we need to make up, and then just say, this is a percentage of the budget that each department is, and then they are responsible for cutting that percentage of.
That's how we did it
Yeah.
for years.
Rather than,
But-
and so then if it gets down really bad and the departments aren't able to do it, then maybe look at COLAs or steps or whatever, but.
We're really bad.
No, I know, but.
Really bad.
Right, but we have done that over the
We
years.
have done
where we
that.
say we need,
But that
this is
was
the
when we were in a
percentage that
better
we're
position
we're
than we
short,
are now.
and we spread it across every department and cut this percentage out of your
I
department,
mean,
however.
I'm
you
fine
can.
with anybody who wants to spend more time with this and figure it out. I've spent,
Because it's a big difference. So, like, if you look at what is needed to take out of, like, the fire department, for instance, it's a huge chunk. And, if you were to say 10% of the fire department isn't enough to take out, whereas 10% of
Library.
well,
that's
sure, but that's
building
actually really
inspector.
bad. Building
Yeah.
inspector
Right.
is too much.
But that's why I'm saying if you look at the percentage of those departments, so building inspector the building department takes up 2% of the remaining of the total budget that town operation general fund budget, then we need to cut, 10% of that total budget. So then they're all the departments are responsible for their
we have
corresponding.
taken major hits to all major departments, and there isn't any place else to take this money from. Unless somebody has a magic wand. I've spent hours going through this, looking for every place to take a hit. I did not take these anywhere near lightly.
And I'm not saying that
But
at
the thing
all.
is, you can't, we're past that point of saying, okay, council on aging is 3%, so they're gonna take 3%. We're past that point. We're way, way past that point. We are in desperate need.
We're at the past where we're cutting past where you can cut.
Right, no, and
And I think that's where Gary's budget came from last week, it's like we're at that point where we're gonna have to close places because you can't nickel and dime it and make up $216,000, $300,000. We have to take it from stabilization or close departments.
Can I make a suggestion that we keep, it's 9:35. I'd like to keep Karen on a roll here, so we're not there past 10 o'clock.
So my thing is I took the budget that we received from Gary on Wednesday, and I went through and I took these hits, and that's where I come down to, we're even.
But
So,
I just asked you a question.
Yep.
And I asked, is that mean the Council on Aging
Nope,
and the library are staying open?
they're staying open, they're just taking a hit just like every other department.
Okay.
His
Yeah.
last budget had library and council on aging open. Now, there's no guarantee that the library's gonna get a waiver. There's no guarantee. Because now we're teetering on that, but this is
Okay.
best guesstimate.
so, we have a balanced budget. We have an override, an amount that would be an override, and that would get us in essence, a needs budget. And we have a balanced budget.
We have 2 balanced budgets. We have
3.
The only, well, it depends, because the 2 that he's got are going into your stabilization. So to me, that's a different thing. That's almost like an override, because it requires a 2/3 vote. So it's a little bit different than just majority.
Sure, but it's a budget suggestion from our town administrator.
I'm just saying, which one do we want to put? I don't think we want to put the one where we're closing the library and the council on aging.
I agree.
And then the other one. So we have to make a decision as to which one you want to put in. My suggestion is keep the one that you sent us on Wednesday, where you did keep both of them, so it's not, necessarily seen as a scare tactic.
Keep both of them open.
You did, you kept
Yes.
both of them open.
Yes.
And then make your cuts as well.
Well, that's just another iteration. That's just
Well,
another
no,
iteration.
it's either we're
Well,
going
we
for the
have to
override
do
out.
several, we have to do
So you
several.
bring to the floor the one with the reserve fund,
With stabilization.
with use of the stabilization.
Yep,
And then if that doesn't pass,
then we go over here.
you'll go to the
Okay.
one
Whatever we
where,
decide on.
Okay.
Yep, whatever's
Those other
decided.
cuts
Because
out.
you have to have all those iterations. And now let's just fling it out there that someone's gonna bring a
Now,
motion on the floor.
how
and
does it
that's gonna be a
work
problem.
with the override? Because you don't have the override vote until after town meeting.
No,
They're all contingent on an
They're all
override.
contingent on
Yeah.
passing it on the ballot. That's
Including
whole
the
thing.
schools gotta be wrapped into that override, because that's where you wanna bring the young
Yeah.
families as well as all the rest of, everybody has their own passion,
Right.
so.
I've said it a couple times, and I think everybody's got to go to the override at the same, everybody across the board.
It's just that we have to have several, because it's going to not be just a,
Right, because we gotta anticipate
there's gonna
and
be
be able
several.
to.
There's a couple other things like you brought up, Ted. There's gonna be a couple others we're gonna have to work on, because there's gonna be potential for some other issues to come through.
So do we know, when will we know those other issues?
We know those other issues,
Okay.
potentially.
It's
happened,
people on the floor.
people on the
making
floor
change.
making a last minute ditch effort to get their budgets better funded. And that,
And we know who those people.
we don't know.
You never know for sure,
We
but if
don't
that
know,
happens,
but you have
that
to
messes
be
up the whole
prepared.
budget.
How can you be prepared for something we don't know?
Because it's
We have to
happened, so I
adjourn-
guess
we
you
have to
anticipate.
Recess for a moment and figure it out.
Um,
Well, you can't plan for every different
No,
scenario.
you can't, but you gotta figure out some stuff that you can kind of play with, because right now, we're bare bones. There's no, if someone comes in and takes something,
There's no place to take it.
there's not even, it's not adjourned for a moment, it's gonna be adjourned for a couple of hours to try to walk through the numbers. That's the problem. So we have to, we've gone in with 5 or 6 budgets, and I'm not lying. We're at the point where we're doing 5 or 6 budgets. It's just what we have to
Oh,
do.
we've done a few.
We've done 3 or 4, easy.
We're at 4 right now, so. it's-
Well, I think the one we would close, the Council on Aging
That's not-
and the library, I think is
Let's take that out.
getting thrown away.
Thrown away.
So, I'm trying to look at it we use Gary's as the one that we put up for it. Let's see what happens. We want to push the override, yes, we do, but we have to be prepared with Gary's to pass with stabilization. If that doesn't go, then we have to go to this one, and what happens if some people on the floor throw stuff? We have to look to see. Because we are the only other place, and I don't recommend it, but we could do it, is we could cut back another 10 grand from legal fees, which would be foolish on our part, but we could do it. That's the only other one that could bring it back legal to where we are this year. I'm not recommending it.
I know, I hear you.
But
I know.
that's the only other place. If I'm missing something, I'm willing to listen to
But
whatever.
even
but
with these budgets, we still need to be out there saying, and we need to be stern on saying it. Like I said, if they're not gonna cut the grass and we can't maintain things, we can't be partying, we can't have all these
Well,
big
the thing is,
celebrations. I'm
we
sorry,
don't
and
have-
that's what most people moved here for.
We don't
is
have
4th of July.
DPW to move their
That's
trucks
what
to
I'm
hold
saying.
back traffic. We don't have this to be done.
But if we're not cutting grass, you can't have people walking all through everywhere on the 4th of July with ticks and everything else because we can't even cut our own
But
grass.
who's we? Who you say we're gonna be out there saying this? Who's saying it and when?
It's just,
All of
well,
us.
everybody's have evening conversations with neighbors and discussions with and anybody in town.
And departments have to.
So Gary, I will send you these so that you can have the conversations next week with the town department. But those are the kinds of conversations that if you're going to do the recordings on cable, they're gonna have to say,
Yeah.
and here's where, this is one iteration, here's another iteration, they're working on others, but these are the things that we're seeing that's gonna happen. And I'm in full agreement, we have to hold, I don't agree that we should be taking people's monies, but I'm willing to take whatever anyone else has for ideas, but we needed that money.
Okay.
So, And that's with the 43,
But that $1.6 million would make a difference.
yeah.
Put a dent in it.
That's Darren's money.
Yeah, it's Darren.
Am I the only one that thought that that was wrong?
No.
No, said the other one said it was your money.
Everybody.
Alex, you're worried about Alex's money.
It is.
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
There's no accountability there.
Yeah.
We're on it.
So then the only other thing that I'm going to ask, because we're going through all of this and we're gonna send this out to everybody here, I would ask that any more changes from your office get funneled through me, and then we can send it out to everybody.
Oh, okay, all right.
Just because, and
Okay.
that way we have, I've added a column for the finance committee budget, and we gotta add more columns, and it's
Okay.
just easier if we funnel it through one person versus every week coming in and I'm having to redo it. So I'm gonna ask that from going forward, please.
I'll see what I can do.
Just makes it easier.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So last week we talked about, is the town administrator's salary in here adequate? We haven't talked about that tonight, is it?
It is.
We added a couple of line items.
Okay.
in there. For the override.
No, she's
Oh,
talking
and
about
in the,
the
current-
town
yeah, we,
administrator's
yeah,
salary.
yeah,
Within
yeah.
We're
We're
good.
anticipating
Yeah.
hopefully that's gonna be.
Okay.
Well, I mean,
Just confident.
next year. Well, we haven't talked to we haven't even picked anybody, so
Not yet,
yes.
so, okay. Right.
I guess
So
we'll
we
pick the
answer
person
your
that it's
original
adequate
question
for.
you asked 25
Go to
minutes
the
ago,
next.
so now he can make his motion.
No, you give him or
Yeah.
her that
Well,
salary, and then you tell
I'm
him
not
that
sure we
it
did,
has to
but
be
I
cut
don't
after
think
he
we did,
agrees and
but-
signs on the dotted line.
I'm just saying, does anyone have any other suggestions besides this?
The lottery?
Well, so,
Bottle and can draft? I've been saying that for years.
So
Well,
we've got the override, we've got the use of stabilizations, and then third option is
Right.
that.
yeah, and from my
And
perspective.
no, I don't have any other suggestions.
Yeah, and I'm good with.
Besides those three.
I mean, they all suck.
What you
That's the
have.
thing.
Yeah.
And everything about it is terrible. So,
Right. There's no good
you know,
news.
it's picking terrible over terrible over terrible.
When are the selectmen gonna have to put, or let it out there, what our override number should be?
Monday.
Have we agreed on what that number is?
Well, I've asked for two. but-
Yeah, I thought that's where we're
But
at.
did we agree? Like, is that?
No, that was just my recommendation.
Yeah,
suggestion.
no, I
We
got it.
haven't agreed
No,
on
but
it,
it's
discussed.
1.9, so 2 is,
Well, it was 1.9. There was 150,000 of free cash that wasn't taken into account. So really, the 1.9 is 1.75 is needed, right?
But we
Needed.
figured two
But-
because
so
you've
now we're
got
calling
two
it
contracts
two.
to settle
Right.
and one town administrator.
so how do we come up with the 150?
Free cash.
Free cash.
Free cash to.
That's the
use to
existing free
balance the
cash.
budget.
So that's money that's available
That can
in
be
free
used to
cash
balance the
now.
budget, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's, to me, that's the same as stabilization.
Sure.
It's one-time fund, that should be one-time fund and not for operating expenses.
Well, it's all non-operating funds.
But we also,
However you wanna
we're
call
also
it.
gonna need it roughly projected, another 150 for snow and ice deficit.
That was gonna be my question, was with the increase in snow and ice, especially with this past storm.
I think we're
Is-
right about at 150 now. It was 98 as of the last warrant. I haven't looked at this warrant yet.
You said it was pretty good, this last one.
What storm?
Yeah, well,
They did do a good job.
the good thing about this last storm
It was
is
a long
we're getting figures now because there's a good chance of state reimbursement of 75% of the cost.
Okay.
That's the good thing about it,
Oh, for this last storm?
for the last storm. Yeah, we just got
should do more.
notification.
But we don't get that money probably until next fiscal year, so don't hold your breath, it doesn't come
No,
in
don't hold
this
your
year.
breath, but we get it.
You
I mean,
do
as long as
eventually get
it's-
it, but it's not,
We gotta come up with
it's not like,
So if we use free cash and we get that money back, it's going back to free
There you
cash.
go.
Okay, all right, that's good. That works.
One little thing about, are we going, the finance committee, are we going to bi-weekly next week?
twice a week.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Darren.
For what?
Are we going 2 weeks, every twice a week, starting next week? Do we need
For
to?
what?
I'm asking, do we need to? Because that was do we feel good?
I mean,
Nobody feels good. but
nobody
you don't
feels
have
good,
any-
but we have what we need.
You have no place else to go.
Have we met with the departments we need to meet?
I think so.
It's really what
Yeah.
that comes out to. There's with some we haven't met with yet, right?
Yeah, I
Well,
know.
some you chose not to, the smaller ones you
Right.
chose not
We
to.
chose not to.
We had to move this along quicker than meeting with everybody, so
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
good then.
I think we,
At this point, I feel like
If we need to, we can. Right now, we'll meet next Thursday. I make a motion that the finance committee adjourn.
Well, wait, hold on.
Yeah,
Wait,
Oh,
Al's
sorry.
still here.
Can we, the finance committee, agree on a number for what we are suggesting as an override to the select board? Because I feel like we're still not there.
So,
Are you recommending a number?
yeah, recommend the number. Make it as a motion.
3 million.
Billion?
3.
Billion?
3
With a
million,
B?
yeah.
3 billion.
That way I could say.
He said billion.
I heard billion. I don't know why I hear such
So,
big
and-
numbers.
And that way I
Hold
could
off
say
on my
to
motion for this discussion.
Good.
Alls I wanna do is make sure that we don't have to come back next year.
Well, we
For the
just,
same thing. And I know everybody explained to me, but that's a crystal ball that we can't see. But
But like Lyndon said, Darren, honestly, if you went in for 2.5 or 3 million and you're only showing a need of 1.7, you've got to justify the balance of the.
Well, that's
of the
what, like,
1.3.
I know that Nancy has had people say that they want to know where the money,
Yeah, exactly.
where that
Yeah.
money's going.
And as far as next year goes, we talked all along, if we do an override, we know the school's gonna come back and say, they get the money.
Well,
And if enrollment goes up, our.
I don't think they're gonna come running in this room anytime soon.
I don't think they're gonna come running in here to do that. They're just gonna send it as a message.
they're actually still waiting outside there.
I hope they are.
Here's a bill.
I make a motion that we recommend to the Board of Selectmen $2 million.
Second.
any discussion?
What makes up the difference between the 1.7 and the 2? What's that 300,000? 150 snow and ice?
2 union contracts and a contract with the town administrator.
Yeah,
And that's
good.
150,000 right there?
That works.
Okay.
Yeah, real close, Al, honestly.
And you got a lot of repairs to buildings that are.
Yeah.
Second it.
They'll spend it.
Oh, I'm sure they'll spend it. I just want to make sure that we know, and we, as a finance committee, agree what that is going
You did.
towards.
Yeah, understood.
You did? Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
I make a motion that the Finance Committee adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Did you finish that sentence? Ethan?